Chapter 591. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. After 2 months of rapid development, the Flame Mercenary Group had already turned all the first-rate forces in the Blue Wind Kingdom into their own mercenary group. They had become the strongest force in the Blue Wind Kingdom, completely above the Imperial family. Until now, there were only a few peak forces in the Blue Wind Kingdom that still maintained their original position and had not been subdued by Jianchen. In the center of the Blue Wind Kingdom's first-class city, Wanzhuang City, there was a huge manor. This manor originally belonged to a first-rate force in Wanzhuang City, but it had now become the temporary base of the Flame Mercenaries. Even the sign above the entrance had been replaced with the symbol of the Flame Mercenaries. At this moment, Jianchen and over 100 experts of the Flame Mercenaries had gathered in a majestic discussion hall within the manor to discuss important matters. On the other hand, the Flame Mercenaries were all stationed on a wide plain outside the city. They did not all enter the city. "Captain, only 3 of the 6 peak organizations in the Blue Wind Kingdom are willing to submit to us. The other 3 would rather die than submit," Warsky reported as he bowed. Since he was the first one to join the Flame Mercenaries and the Carnage Mercenaries originally had 3 Earth Saint Masters, Jiantian had already become the person with the most authority among the group. Jianchen sat high on the throne as he calmly glanced below. He could not help but smile when he heard Warsky's words. He said, "There are actually 3 organizations that are willing to submit to us. Not bad. They're much more powerful than I had imagined. May I ask which organizations they are?" With that, 2 middle-aged men and an old man immediately walked out from the crowd below. They all clasped their hands at Jianchen. "I am Shi Wanjun, and I represent the Daong clan in joining the Flame Mercenaries. My Daong clan is extremely willing to become a part of the Flame Mercenaries and follow the great captain to glory. I am in situ, and I represent the dominating Heaven sect in joining the Flame Mercenaries. I am Dykperos, and I represent the Shuelon clan in joining the Flame Mercenaries. The 3 of them were all Earth Saint Masters, and they weren't weak at all. They were all at the 4th and 5th cycle, and the organizations they represented were all peak organizations in the Blue Wind Kingdom. Originally, they all had Heaven Saint Masters, but without exception, all of them had died in the Battle of the Jessin Kingdom." Jianchen nodded in satisfaction as he looked at the respectful representatives of the 3 organizations. He said, "Welcome to the Flame Mercenaries. We'll all be a family in the future. As long as everyone sincerely fights for the Flame Mercenaries, I, Jianchen, swear that I won't mistreat any of you. I now announce that the Daong clan, the dominating Heaven sect, and the Shuelon clan will be renamed the Daong Hall, the dominating Heaven sect, and the Shuelon Hall. The 3 of you will be the hall masters of your respective halls, responsible for managing the matters of your respective halls." Jianchen did not take away the authority of any of the leaders. After joining the Flame Mercenaries, their authority remained the same as before, except that their goals had changed. All the clans and sects had been renamed as halls. "Thank you for your kindness, Captain." The leaders of the 3 factions cupped their hands and expressed their thanks. Their originally anxious hearts finally settled down. What they were most worried about was that after joining the Flame Mercenary Group, they would lose the authority that originally belonged to them. Jianchen sat on the throne and thought for a while. He said, "Jiantian, take a group of people to Yellow Earth City and exterminate the Harito clan there." "Captain, the Harito clan has already left Yellow Earth City. According to reliable sources, they seem to have left the Blue Wind Kingdom." A black-robed old man clasped his hands. "What? The Harito clan has actually left the Blue Wind Kingdom?" Jianchen frowned and sneered. "They sure fled quickly. If I had known earlier that the Harito clan would do something like this, I would have made arrangements in time." "Captain, should we send a group of people to chase after the Harito clan?" Jiantian asked. Jianchen pondered for a while before replying, "There's no need. The Harito clan no longer poses any threat to our Flame Mercenaries unless their old patriarch, successfully breaks through to Heaven's Saint Master. However, this is not something that can be done in a short amount of time. Even if their ancestor really does become a Heaven Saint Master in 20 years, our flame mercenaries will be even more powerful than now. Even if I am not present, a mere Heaven Saint Master like him will not be able to pose any threat to our flame mercenaries. Since they have already left the Blue Wind Kingdom, we will let them go for now. Captain, what should we do with the other 3 organizations that would rather die than submit in the Blue Wind Kingdom? An old man stood in the crowd and asked. Jianchen lay on the soft and spacious throne as he rubbed his temples. Ever since the flame mercenaries had developed to a certain scale, he had discovered that his life had become more and more tiring. It was no longer as easy and carefree as before. He could do whatever he wanted by himself. There was no need for him to rack his brains over these problems. Everyone, may I ask if you have any good plans regarding this matter? Jianchen looked at the group of people below. Captain, with the strength of our flame mercenaries, we no longer fear anyone. Since the 3 peak organizations are unwilling to submit, we might as well go all the way and annihilate them all. We'll let the world witness the strength of our flame mercenaries. Captain, we can't do that. The 3 peak organizations of the Blue Wind Kingdom still have 2 Heaven Saint Masters and quite a few Earth Saint Masters. If they work together, they may not be our opponent, but they will definitely heavily injure us. And if we really do that, we'll probably completely anger the royal family of the Blue Wind Kingdom. Once the king sends an army to wipe us out without any regard for the consequences, our flame mercenaries will definitely suffer heavy losses. Captain, the 3 organizations cannot be underestimated. We have no enmity with them either. Since they would rather die than submit, there's no need for us to take the risk of losing our strength to wipe them out. It's not worth it. Everyone voiced their opinions one after another, and there were only 2 outcomes. Either they would send troops to annihilate the 3 major forces, or they would let the 3 major forces go and leave them there without a care in the world. Bai Lian hesitated to one side when she heard everyone's discussion. She said to Jianchen, Brother, we have no enmity with the 3 organizations, so there's no need for us to make them submit. Since they would rather die than submit, let's just ignore them. And there are 2 Heaven Saint Masters among them. If those 2 Heaven Saint Masters go crazy, it'll be enough to heavily injure our flame mercenaries, because we don't have a second Heaven Saint Master other than you. Bai Lian is right. Jianchen, I agree with Bai Lian as well, Yu added. As the 2 of them spoke, the noisy voices in the hall immediately quieted down. This was because all of them understood that these 2 seemingly weak women held a very high position in their leader's heart. Jianchen agreed without any hesitation when he heard Bai Lian and Yu Yu's words. He said, If that's the case, let's not worry about the 3 organizations. All right, today's meeting ends here. Everyone disperse. Once you get back, order people to replenish the supplies. We'll be leaving the Blue Wind Kingdom in 3 days. Yes, leader. Everyone answered in unison and left the hall at the same time. After the meeting was adjourned, Jianchen returned to his room. He laid on his bed and closed his eyes as he rubbed his temples with his hands. As the flame mercenaries rapidly expanded, there were more and more things he had to consider, which made Jianchen feel rather exhausted. At this moment, the door was pushed open and Yu walked in. She had changed into a pink dress and looked at Jianchen, who was rubbing his temples. A sliver of heartache appeared in her eyes as she gently said, Jianchen, isn't managing the mercenaries too tiring? Yeah, it really is rather tiring. The flame mercenaries are rapidly expanding right now, so there are just far too many things that need to be arranged and considered. Only now have I discovered that creating a large organization is actually so difficult. Other than having great strength, management cannot be ignored, Jianchen said with a slight headache. Yu walked over to a chair and sat down. Actually, you can just leave these small matters to your subordinates. Jianchen sighed softly. It's a pity that there aren't many people that I can truly trust. Apart from you guys, there's no one else. Although Ming Dong is the vice captain, I know his personality very well. He's not cut out for this. As for Dugo Feng, he doesn't have the ability either, let alone Tai Ta. In the end, it's just you and Bai Lian. Jianqin suddenly opened his eyes and stared at Yu Yu with shining eyes. Yu Yu, I know you've been smart since you were young. Moreover, you grew up in the imperial family and learned many things. If I leave the flame mercenaries to you and Bai Lian, are you confident that you can manage it well? Yu was pleasantly surprised when she heard this. Really? Jianqin, are you really willing to leave the flame mercenaries to me and Bai Lian? Jianqin sat up and stared at Yu seriously. That's right. If you have the ability to manage the mercenaries well, I'll leave it to you. That's fantastic. Jianqin, don't worry. Sister Bai Lian, and I definitely won't disappoint you. Yu was extremely excited. Suddenly, Ming Dong appeared at the door. He glanced at Yu with a strange expression. Brother, someone you know has come looking for you, he said to Jianqin strangely. Brother, an acquaintance of yours has come looking for you. Who? Jianqin asked in confusion. Ming Dong chuckled mischievously. You'll know once you go take a look. Jianqin followed Jianqin out of the room in confusion before making his way to the entrance of the manor. Yu followed beside Jianqin. Very soon, Jianqin arrived at the entrance. However, when he saw the acquaintance that Ming Dong had mentioned, his face immediately froze. He was stunned. Chapter 592. Jianqin stared blankly at Huang Wan, who was standing at the entrance. Then he glanced at Yu from the corner of his eyes and groaned inwardly. He had never thought that Huang Wan would take the initiative to come to him, especially when there was a fiancée who had been betrothed to him by his parents. One was a woman who had deep feelings for Jianqin and had intimate relations with him in the past. The other was his fiancée who had been the talk of the town in the kingdom of Jessin for a long time. Now that the two of them had met, Jianqin immediately felt troubled. Ming Dong obviously realized that Jianqin was in trouble, but he didn't intend to help. He smiled wickedly at Jianqin and said, Brother, I still have something to take care of, so I'll take my leave first. With that, Ming Dong left without any sense of loyalty. Moreover, he would look back every few steps, constantly glancing back and forth between Jianqin, Yu and Huang Wan. He seemed to be taking pleasure in their misfortune. Jianqin looked at Huang Wan, who was standing at the entrance with a wry smile, and asked, Why are you here? Today, Huang Wan was wearing a set of tight-fitting white clothes, which perfectly outlined her devilish figure. Just her figure alone had a fatal attraction, making people have an impulse to hug her tightly in their arms. Huang Wan's attire was very capable and not sloppy. It was completely different from the attire of the young ladies of large families. At this moment, she looked full of the demeanor of a chivalrous woman. When Huang Wan's cold and sharp gaze fell on Jianqin, it immediately softened and became gentle. She smiled and said, Don't you welcome me here? Huang Wan looked at Jianqin with a gaze that couldn't be concealed. Jianqin smiled wryly. He looked at Huang Wan with a complicated gaze and said, Welcome, of course you're welcome. Come in and have a seat. Let me do my part as a host. Huang Wan smiled sweetly at Jianqin before swinging the reins in her hand and striding inside. One of the members of the flame mercenaries waiting at the entrance immediately took the reins and led Huang Wan's magical beast away. Huang Wan stopped in front of Jianqin and looked lovingly at the handsome face that she yearned for day and night. Just when she was about to say something, she suddenly discovered that there was an equally beautiful girl standing beside Jianqin. Her gaze immediately landed on Yu, and she asked in confusion, Jianqin, who is this? Hello, I'm Yu. Yu took the initiative to speak. She had a slight smile on her face, but her heart was filled with jealousy. She could naturally see Huang Wan's feelings for Jianqin and understood that their relationship wasn't that simple. Yu, are you the Grand Princess of the Kingdom of Jessin? Huang Wan looked at Yu Yu with some surprise. Yu Yu nodded slightly and smiled. That's right, I am the Grand Princess. May I ask who this young lady is? Huang Wan's gaze towards Yu Yu immediately changed subtly. There was some undetectable jealousy in the depths of her eyes, but she didn't show it. She smiled and said, I'm Huang Wan. I'm from the Huang family. So it's Miss Huang Wan. May I ask which kingdom Miss Huang Wan is from? Yu has heard of a few Huang families. May I know if you knows any of them? Yu said with a gentle smile. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint the princess. Our Huang family doesn't belong to any kingdom. We've always lived deep in the mountains. We're not one of the few small families with the same name as us in the nearby kingdoms. Huang Wan said. Seeing that the two women had the intention to compete, Jianchen immediately had a headache. He hurriedly said, Let's not stand outside. Let's go inside and catch up. In a splendidly decorated living room, Jianchen, Yu and Huang Wan sat at a large round table and chatted. Huang Wan, who had just met Jianchen, was especially happy. She kept talking to Jianchen and curiously asked about the reason why Jianchen formed the mercenary group. Jianchen answered all of Huang Wan's questions to the best of his knowledge. He did not hide anything at all. At this moment, Huang Wan's eyes lit up as if she had thought of something important. She looked into Jianchen's eyes and said, I almost forgot. Jianchen, there's good news I want to tell you. I've already become the disciple of the ancestor of the Huanggu clan, and he's even passed on his cultivation method, the scripture of the sunflower aqua, to me. It's an extremely rare Saint Tier cultivation method. What, a Saint Tier cultivation method? Jianchen was slightly surprised. Although cultivation methods were not as valuable as battle skills on the Tianyuan continent, Saint Tier cultivation methods were still extremely valuable and rare. Even a few hermit clans did not possess a Saint Tier cultivation method. The scripture of the sunflower aqua is a water-attributed cultivation method, and I just happen to possess water-attributed Saint Force, so it's perfect for me. Ever since I started cultivating the scripture of the sunflower aqua, my strength has skyrocketed. It's several times greater than before. I've only cultivated it for a little over 2 months, yet I've already gone from the first cycle to the second cycle. I'm even confident that I can reach the third cycle in half a year. If this continues, I think I'll be able to become a Heaven Saint Master in just a few years. Huang Wan's face was filled with unconcealable excitement. Hearing Huang Wan's words, Yu was extremely shocked. She stared at Huang Wan, who was dressed like a chivalrous woman. She could not believe that Huang Wan, who seemed to be around the same age as her, was actually an Earth Saint Master. Moreover, she cultivated a Saint Tier cultivation method that only existed in legends. But soon after, Yu's face darkened. She became extremely depressed. From what Huang Wan had said, she had already understood that Huang Wan's status was even higher than hers. She was probably the young miss of an extremely large clan. Not only was Huang Wan's cultivation talent greater than hers, she had already reached the Earth Saint Master realm at the same age as her. Moreover, she had an extremely powerful master who had passed down a Saint Tier cultivation method to her. Huang Wan was superior to her in every aspect. Even though she was the princess of an empire, she was not even half as good as Huang Wan. Noticing the change in Yu, Jianchen became slightly worried. He no longer dared to continue chatting with Huang Wan. He ordered someone to prepare a room for Huang Wan before the three of them dispersed. After leaving the room, Yu's mood became extremely depressed. She returned to her room alone and locked herself in there. She sat by her bed and stared blankly at the wall. At this moment, the door was gently pushed open. Jianchen walked in with light steps. Seeing Yi like this, he felt rather sad. Jianchen gently closed the door and walked to Yu's side. He looked at her with concern. He wanted to say something, but he did not know what to say to comfort Yu. Jianchen sighed inwardly. He was not good with flowery words. Facing such a situation, he felt somewhat helpless. Yu Yu's eyes regained some vigor. She looked at Jianchen with a somewhat miserable expression. Her eyes were gradually filled with a layer of mist. In the end, they gathered into 2 crystal-clear teardrops. They slowly flowed down her beautiful cheeks and finally fell to the ground and shattered. Seeing Yu Yu actually crying, Jianchen immediately became flustered. However, before he could speak, Yu Yu had already opened her mouth. Jianchen, tell me, when you told me before that you didn't want to talk about love, was it a lie? Was the reason why you didn't want to marry me because you have another girl in your heart? Is it a girl who is more outstanding than me? Yu Yu is very sad. Her tone was somewhat sobbing. In fact, in her heart, she had already fallen deeply in love with Jianchen. She could not extricate herself. Today, Yu Yu suddenly appeared. She did not hide her deep feelings for Jianchen. Moreover, she was more outstanding than her in all aspects. This made Yu Yu feel a great threat. It was as if the person she loved deeply was about to be snatched away from her. Jianchen intimately held Yu Yu's hand. He held Yu Yu's white and tender hand tightly in his own. He said softly, Yu Yu, things are not what you think. The reason why I am not in a hurry to marry you is because I can't talk about love right now. I still have a heavy burden on my shoulders. If these things are not resolved, sooner or later, it will bring disaster to the family and you. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Who knows how many times you've repeated it? Yu Yu sobbed. Jianchen looked at Yu Yu with a complicated expression. Ever since he had known Yu Yu, she had always given him the impression of a calm and steady person. However, this was the first time he had seen Yu Yu cry so sadly. This made him feel a little hurt. Jianchen sighed inside. He knew that there were some things that he needed to be honest with Yu Yu. Otherwise, he would probably break the girl's heart. Yu Yu, although on the surface I seem to be incomparably glorious, not only am I a Heaven Saint Master, but I am also the imperial protector of one of the 8 great nations of the continent. However, do you know that my life is not easy? This is because I have many enemies outside. Jianchen was in a daze as he slowly told the story that he had buried in his mind. Yu Yu's sobs gradually stopped as she stared at Jianchen. I've made quite a number of enemies in the Tianyuan continent over the past few years. Although I've destroyed most of them, there are still some powerful forces that I can't touch, including the Shi family and the Jetta family. These 2 clans are both hermit clans on the Tianyuan continent. They are extremely powerful, and there are saint rulers in their clans. I have an irreconcilable enmity with these 2 clans, so it will only end with one of us dead. Either I die or they live. Moreover, I'm afraid that these 2 clans have been searching for me all this time. Although my current location is very far from them, I know that they will find me here sooner or later. Once they find my location, even if I'm the imperial protector of the Qinhuang kingdom, it will be useless. Therefore, I only want to increase my own strength now. Otherwise, when their Saint King finds me in the future, I will die without a burial place and will even implicate everyone. Other than them, there is also the sect of Dragon and Tiger that I met in the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. This sect of Dragon and Tiger is also an incomparably powerful sect. Their old sect master is also a saint ruler, and he covets my treasures. Although my identity as the imperial protector of the Qin Empire can temporarily deter him and prevent him from acting against me, who knows if the saint ruler of the sect of Dragon and Tiger will secretly make a move against me. Jianchen looked at Yu Yu with a serious expression and said, Yu Yu, now you should know how much pressure I am facing. My enemies outside are all hermits who have reached the level of saint rulers. I am powerless against them right now. I don't even have the ability to flee. I don't even know how long I have left. Chapter 593. In order to heal the pain in Yu Yu's heart, Jianchen had no choice but to tell her something that even his parents had not told her. This was because Jianchen also understood that if he continued to hide the truth, it would only confirm Yu Yu's thoughts and cause her great pain. This was not something that Jianqin wanted to see. Yu Yu had completely stopped crying when she heard Jianqin's words. 2 crystalline teardrops hung from her beautiful face as she stared at Jianqin in a daze. Only now did she finally understand just how great of a burden Jianqin was shouldering and how great of a danger he was facing. Saint rulers were unimaginably powerful existences in Yu Yu's heart. In her eyes, they were supreme experts that only existed in legends. Many people on the Tianyuan continent would never be able to see them in their entire lives. However, Jianqin had not only provoked 1 saint ruler, but 2 or 3 of them. This made Yu Yu extremely fearful. She deeply worried for Jianqin. Jianqin held Yu Yu's hand tightly. This was the first time he had touched Yu Yu's hand since he had met Yu Yu. Jianqin was in no mood to enjoy the softness of her hand. He stared at Yu Yu and sternly said, "Yu Yu, I haven't even told my parents about this. I hope you can keep this a secret for me and don't let them know. Saint rulers are just far too powerful. They're not people that the current Changyang prefecture and I can deal with. I don't want them to worry about me." Yu Yu stared at Jianqin in a daze. Her sorrowful expression had completely vanished and was replaced with deep worry. "I'm sorry, Jianqin. I really didn't know that you were facing so much pressure," Yu Yu sorrowfully said. Jianqin smiled and shook his head slightly. "Yu Yu, it's good that you can understand. The enmity between me and those 2 families cannot be resolved. Before I resolve this matter, I really don't want to waste time on personal matters." After comforting Yu Yu, Jianqin left with a heavy heart. He returned to his room, but as soon as he entered the living room, he suddenly froze. His calm gaze sharpened at that moment, staring at the center of the room like an unsheathed sword. There, a blue-robed person sat at a round table with his back to Jianqin. He drank tea leisurely by himself. The person had long, black hair that draped behind his back. He did not give off any presence at all. He seemed like an ordinary person, extremely ordinary. However, it was this ordinary person that made Jianqin become extremely stern. He immediately became on high alert, as if he was facing a great enemy. This was because he could not sense any presence from the person at all. If it were not for the fact that he could see the person with his eyes, he would have even ignored the person's existence. Only a hermit who had reached Saint Ruler could make him feel this way. Jianqin immediately became extremely nervous when a Saint Ruler suddenly appeared in his room. "Who are you?" Jianqin asked with a heavy voice. A white piece of jade had already appeared in his right hand that was hidden behind his back. He was powerless against a Saint Ruler with his current strength, so the only thing he could do was ask for help from the ancestor of the Huang family. "Hee, there's no need to be nervous. Old man has come without warning. Please forgive me if I've disturbed you in any way," said an old voice. An old voice came from the mouth of the blue-robed man. He was still sitting in front of the table in the same posture as before, and he didn't even turn his head. Although the person did not show any hostility, Jianqin did not dare to be careless. He stared at the person's back closely. He asked with a heavy voice, "Senior, may I ask who you are?" "Since you want to know so much, I'll tell you beforehand. That girl must have already told you that she has a master, and I am her master," the person said nonchalantly. Jianqin was slightly surprised. He stared at the person's back in surprise and asked in surprise, "Are you the ancestor of the Huanggu clan?" "Correct, I am old man." Jianqin secretly sighed in relief after learning the person's identity. Although a Saint Ruler made him feel very pressured, he had at least confirmed that the person was not an enemy. "Little brother, please sit. Let's have a good chat," said the ancestor of the Huanggu clan. Jianqin recovered his composure from before. He strode over to the table and sat before the old man. Only now did Jianqin see the ancestor's true appearance. He was an extremely ordinary-looking old man. His face was covered in wrinkles. The only thing that stood out about him was the blue imprint on his forehead. It was very difficult to see the imprint because of the wrinkles on his forehead. The ancestor looked at Jianqin deeply and said, "Little brother, should I call you the imperial protector of the Qin Empire or the fourth young master of the Changyang Prefecture? Or should I call you Jianqin?" "Senior, just call me Jianqin." Jianqin smiled. The ancestor nodded slightly. "Then I'll call you Jianqin." "Jianqin, I don't like to beat around the bush, so I'll just get straight to the point." The ancestor of the Huanggu clan paused before continuing. "Jianqin, you can say that I've come specially for Huang Wan this time, so what we're going to discuss next is related to her." Jianqin's heart sank slightly. He asked, "Senior, have you come for the marriage between Huang Wan and your clan?" The ancestor of the Huanggu clan shook his head. "Huang Wan's engagement with our Huanggu clan has already been annulled. I obviously won't continue to dwell on this matter. I've come this time for the sake of the girl's future. May I ask Senior's intentions?" Jianqin was rather confused by the ancestor's intentions. The ancestor pondered for a while before replying. "Jianqin, Huang Wan's constitution is special. It's a rare occurrence on the Tian-Yuan continent. If we find a suitable water-attributed cultivation method for her, her strength will increase at an extremely rapid rate. As a result, I've taught her a Saint Tier water-attributed cultivation method so that she'll be able to cultivate more efficiently. It won't even be difficult for her to break through to Saint Ruler in the future. However, there is a taboo that must be obeyed, and that is that she cannot lose her virginity before she reaches the 6th cycle of Heaven Saint Master. Otherwise, it will greatly affect her future." The ancestor's face became more and more stern as he reached the end of his speech. Jianqin was originally rather stern as well, but he could not help but blush slightly when he heard the ancestor's last sentence. He smiled awkwardly and said, "Senior, you don't have to worry about that. My relationship with Huang Wan hasn't developed to that level yet." "Yeah, that's for the best." The ancestor nodded in satisfaction and said, "Jianqin, you already know everything you need to know. For the sake of Huang Wan's future, you must abide by this taboo." "I understand, Senior." Jianqin rubbed his nose in a rather awkward manner. At that moment, he could not help but ask himself if he was really a pervert. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan stood up from his chair. "I've accomplished what I came here for. I'll be taking my leave today." With that, the ancestor of the Huanggu clan vanished from the room, vanishing without a trace. Jianqin looked around. The windows and doors were still tightly shut. The entire room was sealed up without any gaps at all. He really could not imagine how the ancestor of the Huanggu clan had managed to leave under such circumstances. Saint Rulers really are powerful. The abilities they possess are beyond our reach, Jianqin murmured. He was filled with deep envy. So Huang Wan has a special constitution that's extremely talented for cultivation. No wonder she's already an Earth Saint Master at such a young age, several dozen kilometers away. The ancestor turned into an undetectable blur as he shot through the air. He flew off into the distance at an unbelievable speed. Now that I've told him all this, he probably won't try to do anything to Huang Wan anymore. The water spirit's body can finally be preserved perfectly. However, I've already placed a seal in Huang Wan's body, so even if he tries to do anything to her, he won't be able to succeed. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan sneered. He seemed to have succeeded in his scheme. In the blink of an eye, a year had passed. During this year, the Flame Mercenaries had changed the most. During this time, the Flame Mercenaries had never stopped expanding. They had already swallowed up all the first-rate organizations in the surrounding kingdoms, including the Qiangan Kingdom, the Hidden Dragon Kingdom, the Antilles Kingdom, and the Pingyang Kingdom, all of which were enemies of the Jessin Kingdom in the past. As a result, the Flame Mercenaries had become a huge organization that reigned over a region. At the same time, the members of the Flame Mercenaries had expanded from 30,000 to 100,000. There were over 500 Earth Saint Masters and 3 Heaven Saint Masters. They had even recruited 3 Heaven Saint Masters. The scale of the mercenaries was vast, enough to shake up the region. Now, the Flame mercenaries were known by everyone in a radius of 100,000 kilometers. All the independent mercenaries and small mercenary groups would show envy and admiration when they mentioned the Flame mercenaries. The blazing Flame mercenaries' sudden rise and rapid development all the way to their current scale was a miracle. A large group of people sat on the ground and rested on a desolate plain. Tents had been erected in the surroundings in an orderly fashion. Nearby, over 100 bonfires roared, giving off wisps of smoke. Mercenaries in various attire sat in groups of 3 to 5 before the bonfires, chatting as they roasted the meat of magical beasts on metal forks. Several dozen flags with the image of flames were planted on the ground. These were the flags of the Flame mercenaries. Gentian and the others gathered in the largest tent in the center for a meeting. Chapter 594. Gentian lowered his head in thought when he heard Dugu Feng's suggestion. He knew very well that many powerful mercenary groups had their own cities on the Tianyuan continent. Only by possessing a city that completely belonged to the mercenary group could they gain a foothold on the Tianyuan continent. However, the mercenary groups that possessed cities were all extremely powerful. None of them were weak. Even the current scale of the Flame mercenaries paled in comparison to them by quite a bit. Although the Flame mercenaries already had 100,000 members, there were just far too few peak experts who could hold their own. Other than Jianqin, there were only 3 Heaven Saint Masters. It would be very difficult for them to protect the city if they spent a large amount of money and resources on it. Once the city was taken away, they would be the ones to suffer losses. This was because not only were there frequent wars between kingdoms on the Tianyuan continent, but even the cities founded by mercenary groups would often be taken away by more powerful organizations, and there were quite a few of them. Jianchen thought about it for a while before rejecting Dugu Feng's suggestion. He said, "Our Flame mercenaries may be the ruler of a region right now, but that's only limited to a radius of 100,000 kilometers. It's not suitable for us to establish a city with our current strength. Let's talk about this in the future." That's right. Right now, our Raging Flame mercenary group does appear to be extremely powerful, but there's a huge hidden danger within. That's why we need to focus on reorganizing the internal matters of the group. We need to tie the Raging Flame mercenary group into a rope in the shortest amount of time. Otherwise, something will happen sooner or later. If the situation becomes serious, the group that we've worked so hard to strengthen might even collapse. You said solemnly, "If that's the case, we'll focus on reorganizing the internal affairs of the group." By Lian, I'll leave this matter to the 2 of you. If there's anything you need me to do, feel free to come find me, Jianqin said. During this period of time, he basically left all the miscellaneous matters of the Flame mercenaries to Yu and Bai Lian. After a year of testing, the 2 of them were indeed very talented in management, especially Bai Lian. This was especially so for Bai Lian. Although her talent in cultivation was nothing special and she had yet to condense a saint weapon, her intelligence was extremely high. She was much stronger than Yu in terms of management. It was as if she was destined to be an outstanding manager from the moment she was born. "Captain, we've received a secret letter for you." At this moment, a voice rang out from outside. "Bring it in." "Yes, sir." The tent door was opened and Hani, who was dressed in a white robe, walked in. In his hand was a snow-white lightning bird that was about the size of a fist. Jianqin took the lightning bird from Hani's hands and removed a small piece of paper that had been rolled up into a small cylinder from its leg. He then immediately opened it and read it. "There's something important. Return to Changyang Prefecture as soon as possible." Jianqin's face immediately became rather stern after reading the few words on the slip of paper. Everyone's hearts tightened when they noticed a change in Jianqin's expression. Yu asked in concern, "Jianqin, what's happened?" Jianqin carefully checked the letter and the words on it. Only after confirming that it was not fake did he slowly tear the letter to shreds. He said, "It's a letter from home. I need to return to Changyang Prefecture immediately. Let's set up camp here for now. Once I return, crush the mother-child twin rock to notify me if there's anything urgent." Jianchen bid farewell to Yu Yu and the others before finding the 3 Heaven Saint Masters who had joined the Flame mercenaries. He explained a few things to them before leaving. He flew toward Changyang Prefecture as quickly as he could. That evening, Jianchen finally returned to Changyang Prefecture as night fell. As soon as he landed in Changyang Prefecture, the plainly dressed Chang Bo appeared before Jianchen like a ghost. "Fourth young master, I never thought you'd return so quickly." Chang Bo smiled at Jianchen. Jianchen secretly sighed in relief when he saw how relaxed Chang Bo was. He really had been worried that something had happened when his family had sent him back so urgently. "Chang Bo, what's so important that you've sent me back so quickly?" Jianchen asked in doubt. "We don't know the specifics, but the people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom have come. They said that they have something extremely important to report to you and that they can't waste a single moment. That's why the Patriarch sent you back so urgently," Changbo explained. He was also very doubtful inside. The Heavenly Eagle Kingdom? Hasn't it already been destroyed? Jianchen was slightly surprised. Changbo laughed involuntarily and chuckled. "I didn't explain it clearly. Please don't blame me, fourth young master." This time, one of the leaders of the 7 great organizations from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom has personally come. He says that he has something extremely important to report to you. Fourth young master, he's in the discussion hall right now. Let's go. Soon after, Jianchen and Chang both shuttled through Changyang Prefecture together and headed straight for the discussion hall. Along the way, all the guards and servants who brushed past them all bowed respectfully. Jianchen quickly arrived at the discussion hall and discovered that it was already filled with people. His father, Changyang Ba, his mother, Bai Yuntian, and many other senior figures of Changyang Prefecture were all gathered here. They were chatting enthusiastically with a burly middle-aged man. Jianchen was discovered as soon as he entered the hall. Immediately, everyone in the hall stood up and greeted Jianchen with smiles on their faces. Everyone in Changyang Prefecture looked at Jianchen with eyes full of pride. The middle-aged man who was chatting with the people in Changyang Prefecture also strode in front of Jianchen and bowed respectfully. The leader of the Blood Moon mercenary group, Kai Naisai, greets the Imperial Protector. After the disbandment of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, the territory was divided into 7, and the Blood Moon mercenary group was one of the 7 great organizations. Jianchen looked at Kai Naisai and said, "Kai Naisai, you must be looking for me for something important. I wonder what happened over there." Kai Naisai looked around and said hesitantly, "Lord Imperial Protector, this matter is highly confidential," so Jianchen understood and said, "If that's the case, then let's go to my residence to discuss it." "Yes, Lord Imperial Protector." Jianchen looked at Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian and said, "Father, Mother, I have something important to do, so I'll take my leave first." Xiang'er, leader Kai Naisai traveled thousands of miles to Changyang Prefecture, so this matter must be very important. You don't have to worry about us. Go take care of your own matters first, Changyang Ba said with a smile. Xiang'er, important matters are more important. You should go take care of your own matters first, Bai Yuntian also said gently. She also felt very proud to have such an outstanding and filial son. Jianchen exchanged a few words with the people in the hall, then brought Kai Naisai back to his own resting place. "Kai Naisai, I wonder what important matter you have to report to me. Has the sect of Dragon and Tiger done something to you?" Jianchen sternly asked Kai Naisai. Kai Naisai shook his head and looked around cautiously. He then moved his mouth close to Jianchen's ear and said softly, "Lord Imperial Protector, we've discovered a large tungsten alloy mine in a mountain range." "What did you say? You've discovered a large tungsten alloy mine?" A gleam of light flashed through Gentian's eyes as he softly exclaimed. Tungsten alloy was a rare metal on the Tianyuan continent. It was 10 times more valuable than purple coins. A kilogram of tungsten alloy, or could be exchanged for 10 kilograms of purple coins. Yes, Lord Imperial Protector, our Blood Moon mercenaries accidentally discovered it in a mountain range. After a preliminary investigation, we've confirmed that it's a large tungsten alloy mine. The purity is extremely rare on the Tianyuan continent. Just the ore that appeared on the surface has reached a terrifying 85% purity, Kainaisai excitedly said. Genshin gasped. He had also been shocked by the purity. 85% purity meant that 100 kilograms of ore could be refined into 85 kilograms of tungsten alloy. How many people know about this? Genshin suddenly became extremely stern. I've already executed a portion of the people who know about this. There are less than 50 people who know about it right now, and they're all trustworthy people. At the same time, I've sealed off all information regarding the tungsten alloy mine, Kainaisai sternly said. Genshin secretly let out a sigh of relief inside. A large tungsten alloy mine with high purity represented an immeasurable amount of wealth. If the news were to spread, it would definitely lead to a storm of blood. This was because this was a mine that was 10 times more valuable than a mine that could yield purple coins. Lord Imperial Protector, the tungsten alloy mine is extremely valuable. It will definitely attract a large number of foreign organizations. With just the strength of our 7 organizations, it's impossible for us to protect this mine. Lord Imperial Protector, what do you think we should do about this? Do you want the Qin Empire to intervene immediately? Genshin pondered for quite a while before replying, since the news of the tungsten alloy mine has not been leaked yet. Let's continue to keep it a secret. Kainaisai, go back immediately and personally guard the mine with the people from the 7 organizations. At the same time, organize people to secretly mine it. Remember, the fewer people who know about this, the better. Do not leak this information. I'll be back soon. Yes, Lord Imperial Protector, Kainaisai replied with clasped hands. Chapter 595. Kainaisai immediately left Changyang Prefecture and hurried back to his territory. The appearance of the tungsten alloy mine was a matter of great importance. It was an inestimable amount of wealth, so Genshin did not dare to be careless. Without a Heaven Saint Master guarding it, Genshin found it very difficult to relax. He was afraid that the news would leak out. Genshin walked around the center of the room with his hands behind his back with a stern expression. He constantly thought about the tungsten alloy mine. On his shoulder, the little white tiger that was inseparable from him was lying there quietly. Its originally bright eyes had become dull and lifeless, and it looked listless and listless. Looks like I need to move the flame mercenaries to the territory of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom as soon as possible, Genshin thought to himself. Genshin remained in the room by himself for almost an hour. He only left when Bai Yuntian personally came to call him for dinner. The table was filled with sumptuous dishes. Genshin, Changyang Ba, Bai Yuntian, and his 3 aunts all sat at the same table and chatted as they ate. Linglong, Yu Fengyan, and Bai Yuntian had mentioned the flame mercenaries before. They had known about Genshin's flame mercenaries a long time ago, but they were extremely confused about why Genshin, the imperial protector of both the kingdom of Jessin and the Qin Empire, would lower himself to create a mercenary group. In response to Bai Yuntian's and his 2 aunts' questions, Genshin patiently explained the reason. He didn't hide anything, as there was no secret worth hiding. Xianger's actions are correct. Since Captain Kendall died to save you, you should fulfill your promise and give him an explanation, Changyang Ba said. Xianger, you've been outside for the past few days. Do you have any news about your second sister? Bai Yuntian suddenly asked. Genshin's eyes dimmed when he heard that. He gently sighed and shook his head. Mother, I've been constantly looking for news about my second sister, but there's been no news at all. Yu Fengyan's expression changed when she heard that. Sorrow filled her face, that damned girl. Who knows where she's gone to hide? No matter what, she should have come back to tell us that she's safe. We don't even have any news about her right now. I wonder if Mingyue is a she. Towards the end, Yu Fengyan could not help but sob softly. Her daughter had left alone for so long without any news. As a mother, Yu Fengyan was both worried and afraid. She was afraid that something had really happened to her only daughter outside. The people at the table all fell silent. Their faces were rather heavy. The people present were either Changyang Mingyue's parents or aunts. They had all watched Changyang Mingyue grow up. Now that Changyang Mingyue had encountered such a situation, they felt extremely worried. After all, Changyang Mingyue was not Jianqin. Auntie, don't take it too hard. My sister is lucky. She won't be in any danger. Look at me. Didn't I leave the kingdom of Jessen alone a few years ago without any news? Aren't I still living well? Jianqin comforted. However, his words were destined to have no effect at all. Yu Fengyan and the others did not believe that their daughter possessed the same ability as Jianqin. Moreover, it was much more dangerous for a woman to wander alone than a man. There was no lack of lecherous people among the mercenaries who made a living on the Tianyuan continent. Sai, our daughter has grown up. She's become rebellious, but it's all our fault. We were the ones who forced Mingyue's marriage, which was why she left home. Changyangba sighed as well. He felt extremely regretful. Father, Auntie, don't worry. I will definitely send more people to search for my sister, Jianqin firmly said. Changyang Mingyue had always cared for him when he was young. She was the only sibling who had left a good impression on him. Now that something like this had happened to her, Jianqin felt extremely uncomfortable. Whatever. Let's not talk about this for now. We've already discussed this matter countless times, but it's all useless. Changyangba let out a long sigh before looking at Jianqin. After a moment of thought, he said, Xiang'er, there's something I hope you can agree to. I know everything about you and your auntie, Linglong. Although your auntie is a little petty and has made things difficult for you more than once, she's not a bad person. Ever since what happened last time, your auntie and your brother seem to have completely changed. They haven't eaten with us in a very long time because they feel very guilty. As a result, I hope you can forgive your auntie. Changyangba spoke with a pleading tone. As the patriarch of the family, it was extremely rare for him to treat his own son like this. Jianqin agreed to Changyangba's suggestion without much hesitation. Although he was also very dissatisfied with his auntie, they were still a family after all. Jianqin did not want to ruin a warm family that was hard to come by because of his own insistence. Seeing that Jianqin was no longer looking into, by Yu Shuang's past mistakes, Changyangba was extremely happy. Afterwards, Jianqin took out the 100 herbs wine that the Ape King had gifted him from his space ring and poured a cup for everyone at the table. After drinking the 100 herbs wine, everyone's strength experienced a qualitative leap. Changyangba, who had only reached the first cycle of Earth Saint Master 3 months ago, directly broke through to the peak of the second cycle. He would reach the third cycle very soon. As for Bai Yushuang and Linglong, they had both reached the high tier of Saint Master. Even Bai Yuntian, who did not know any Saint Force, had benefited greatly. Her radiant Saint Master cultivation had increased from the third to the fourth cycle, which was equivalent to several years of hard work. Afterwards, Jianqin called Changbo in and had Changbo taste a cup as well. However, it was only a small cup of the 100 herbs wine. To a heaven Saint Master like Changbo, its effects were almost negligible. It could only strengthen the Saint Force within his body. He did not break through as smoothly as Principal Kaffir. After the meal, Jianqin chatted with his parents for a while before going to visit his brother, Changyang Hu. Currently, Changyang Hu could only lie in bed all day. Having lost his arm, he even needed others to help him eat and change his clothes. He could not take care of himself at all, living a miserable life. Seeing his brother's miserable state, Jianqin felt very pained inside. He was tempted to immediately advance to the seventh Radiant Saint Master and use a heaven-defying method to regrow his brother's arm. The next morning, he went to Lore City to visit Ken, San, and his mother. With the help of the Changyang Prefecture, Ken San and his mother had opened a rather large inn on a bustling street in Lore City. Business was booming and they were filled to the brim with customers every day. With the protection of the Changyang Prefecture, their inn had become the safest inn in Lore City. No one dared to fight inside, and all the merchants and mercenaries who ate or stayed there were well behaved. After bidding farewell to Ken San and his mother, Jianqin left Lore City. After several hours of flight, he finally arrived at the desolate area where the flame mercenaries were stationed. He immediately gathered everyone together. "Jianqin, why have you called for us in such a hurry?" Ming Dong could not help but ask out of curiosity as soon as everyone sat down in the tent. Jianqin sternly sat at the head of the table and ordered, "Pass down my orders. Everyone is to immediately break camp and set off for the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom through the night." Everyone was surprised. "Princess, you asked in doubt through the night? Jianqin, is there a need to be in such a hurry?" Jianqin nodded sternly. "There is, and the sooner the better. Lead the group and hurry over. I need to take a step forward, so I won't be traveling with you." "Jianqin, why have you suddenly become so anxious? Has something important happened there?" Mingdong asked. "I'll keep this a secret for now. I'll tell you slowly once you arrive." "All right, the meeting is adjourned. Go make arrangements immediately. I'll be leaving first." With that, Jianqin immediately left and hurried to the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. There was no time to waste. 2 days later, Jianqin finally arrived at the territory of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. He then recalled how he had divided the territories among the 7 major powers before heading directly to the territory of the Blood Moon Mercenary Group. The Blood Moon Mercenary Group had already become a major power that dominated a region. Jianqin casually asked around in the territory of the Blood Moon Mercenary Group and found out where their headquarters were. He then hurried without stopping to rest. The headquarters of the Blood Moon Mercenary Group was a newly built castle. As Jianqin did not conceal his aura, Kai Nisai, who had just returned to the castle, discovered him as soon as he arrived above the castle. Kai Nisai immediately flew out of the castle and arrived before Jianqin. He cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, Imperial Protector!" "What's the current situation? The matter of the tungsten alloy vein hasn't been leaked, right?" Jianqin asked in a low voice. "Reporting to the Imperial Protector, everything is under control. The news of the tungsten alloy vein has been tightly sealed. Apart from a few dozen trustworthy brothers, no one else knows about it. Even the people from the other 6 major powers are completely unaware," Kai Nisai said. Jianqin nodded in satisfaction and said, "Not bad. You've done well. You've done a great service this time. I won't treat you unfairly. To be able to serve the Qin Empire and the respected Imperial Protector is Kai Nisai's honor. Kai Nisai has no other requests," Kai Nisai said with a solemn expression. Jianqin smiled and said, "Where is the tungsten alloy vein? Bring me there immediately." Chapter 596. The location where the tungsten alloy vein was discovered was not far from the headquarters of the Blood Moon Mercenaries. It was only 50 kilometers behind the castle. There was a deep forest that stretched for several hundred kilometers. The environment inside was vile, filled with poisonous insects, ferocious beasts, swamps, and miasma. There were even a few magical beasts living there. The exact location of the tungsten alloy vein was at the center of the forest, at the bottom of a large canyon. In the evening, the sun had already completely disappeared from the horizon. The sky was dusky and visibility was extremely low. At this moment, 2 streaks of light, one green and one yellow, streaked across the sky like meteors. They quickly arrived above the canyon and floated there. It was Jianqin and Kai Nisai. As soon as the 2 appeared, several figures flickered in the forest below. They quickly arrived below Jianchen and Kai Nisai and cupped their hands towards the two in the sky. "Captain!" Kai Nisai turned his head to Jianchen and said, "Sir Imperial Protector, they are all Earth Saint Masters. I have arranged for them to guard this place to prevent anyone from coming here and leaking information about the tungsten alloy vein." Jianchen's gaze swept past the people below and nodded in satisfaction. He gently smiled and said, "You've done well." Kai Nisai chuckled and said to the people below, "The few of you go hide yourselves. Keep a close eye on the surroundings. If anyone comes close, kill them without mercy." "Yes," the Earth Saint Masters below replied in unison. They then turned into several shadows and disappeared in a few flashes. They had already hidden themselves in the surroundings of the canyon. "Imperial Protector, we accidentally discovered the tungsten alloy vein at the bottom of the canyon." Kai Nisai said, "Come, let's go down and take a look." Jianchen's body quickly descended to the bottom of the canyon. The area at the bottom of the canyon was not large. It was narrow and long, just like a ravine. The surroundings were filled with 2 to 3 meters long weeds. Jianchen hovered in the air above the weeds and examined the surroundings. He then slowly closed his eyes and released his consciousness without holding back. It covered a radius of 15 kilometers and penetrated all obstacles to investigate the scenery within the rocks. Under the observation of Jianchen's consciousness, the surrounding rocks seemed to be nothing more than decorations to Jianchen. They did not obstruct him in the slightest. However, when he saw the situation within, he could not help but gasp even with his mental fortitude. This was indeed a large tungsten alloy vein, and the purity was exactly as Kai Nisai had described, reaching a terrifying 85% purity. Furthermore, the amount of tungsten alloy stored within the range of his divine sense left him flabbergasted. This was because within the range of his divine sense, all he could see were tungsten alloy veins beneath the 5-meter-thick rock layer. Furthermore, beyond the range of his divine sense, there were many tungsten alloy ores that he had yet to discover. In short, the amount of tungsten alloy ore stored here had reached a shocking level. After learning about the situation hidden within the rocks, Jianchen gasped. At this moment, his originally calm heart could not help but violently beat. At this moment, the excitement in his heart had reached an extreme level. Jianchen suppressed the surging excitement in his heart and continued to extend his consciousness into the ground. He wanted to see just how many tungsten alloy ores were hidden underground. Jianchen's consciousness quickly invaded the ground and soon reached a depth of 10 kilometers. Wherever his consciousness swept, it was all high-purity tungsten alloy ores. Moreover, the deeper he went, the higher the purity of the tungsten alloy ores. When Jianchen's consciousness reached a depth of 10 kilometers, the purity of the tungsten alloy ores had increased from 85% to 90%. If the purity reached 100%, it would not be called tungsten alloy ores, but a complete tungsten alloy. Jianchen's mind, which had finally calmed down with great difficulty, began to fluctuate violently again. He was so excited that his body trembled slightly. Immediately, Jianchen did not stop his consciousness from continuing to extend and continued to extend it even deeper. 11 kilometers, 12 kilometers, 13 kilometers, 14 kilometers. Soon, Jianchen's consciousness had spread to the limit and reached a range of 15 kilometers. However, at this moment, Jianchen's expression changed slightly and he let out a soft sound of surprise. 15 kilometers underground, Jianchen's consciousness actually detected an extremely powerful energy fluctuation. It was like a boundary that prevented Jianchen's consciousness from penetrating. Moreover, this place had already reached the limit of Jianchen's consciousness expansion. He could only observe the outermost layer of the energy that had appeared underground. He had no idea how big this energy was. What is that? Jianchen thought. He was extremely curious about the energy that he had unexpectedly discovered underground. It was a pity that his current consciousness could only extend to a range of 15 kilometers, so he was unable to observe the energy any further. The senses of Jian Chen's soul circled around the ball of energy, hidden underground for a while before slowly withdrawing it. He hovered above the grass with a frown as he stared at the ground. Just what was the mysterious energy that had appeared underground that had piqued his curiosity, completely suppressing his joy from the tungsten alloy mine? If only my consciousness could be a little stronger. Although I can't penetrate the energy, I can at least wrap it around and see what it is, Jianchen thought. Kai Nisai arrived beside Jianchen and looked at Jianchen in confusion. He frowned and asked, "Sir Imperial Protector, what's wrong?" "Kai Nisai, does this canyon have any history or legends of the past?" Jianchen stared at Kai Nisai with bright eyes. Kai Nisai shook his head without thinking and flatly replied, "No, at least I haven't heard of it." Jianchen sighed gently before flying out of the gorge. He continued to use the senses of his soul to investigate the amount of tungsten alloy in the surroundings of the gorge. However, when he arrived 20 kilometers away from the gorge, the purity of the tungsten alloy gradually decreased from 85% to 50%. Only when he was 50 kilometers away from the gorge did the tungsten alloy completely disappear. All that was left was rock and mud. Jianchen flew around the canyon and finally confirmed that the tungsten alloy vein had spread out in a circle with the canyon as the center. The diameter of the circle was about 100 kilometers, and all the tungsten alloy within 100 kilometers was tungsten alloy. The tungsten alloy at the center of the canyon had the highest purity, reaching at least 85%. After personally investigating the tungsten alloy vein, Jianchen and Kai Nisai returned to the headquarters of the Blood Moon Mercenaries. The headquarters of the Blood Moon Mercenaries was a huge castle. At this moment, Jianchen, Kai Nisai, and a few trustworthy members of the upper echelon of the mercenaries were secretly discussing the tungsten alloy vein on the highest floor of the castle. The tungsten alloy vein must be excavated as soon as possible. At the same time, the news must be completely sealed. Not even the slightest bit of news can be leaked out. Kai Nisai, you must immediately arrange this matter. Jianchen sternly said, "Sir Imperial Protector, even though this is an unrefined or its purity is far too high, coupled with the wondrous properties of tungsten alloy, its hardness is much greater than refined steel. The difficulty of excavating it is extremely great. With just the strength of our Blood Moon mercenaries, we probably won't be able to excavate much in a year." The one who spoke was a black-robed old man. He was an Earth Saint Master and one of the founding members of the Blood Moon Mercenaries. "Sir Imperial Protector, I've already notified the leaders of the other 6 territories. They should be arriving very soon. Do you think we should tell the 6 of them about this and have them work together to choose a trustworthy person to excavate the ore?" Kai Nisai suggested, "That's right. That's exactly what I was thinking. Once the 6 of them arrive, let's tell them about this." Jianchen said. Over half a day later, the Heaven Saint Masters of the other 6 territories came to the headquarters of the Blood Moon Mercenaries to see Jianchen. After the leaders of the 7 territories had gathered, Jianchen and the 7 of them began a secret discussion. They discussed the operation of the tungsten alloy vein and how to keep it a secret. This time, the meeting lasted for a very long time. Jianchen and the 7 Heaven Saint Masters discussed from the afternoon until late into the night. They discussed the various aspects of mining, transportation, refining, and keeping it a secret. The next day, Kai Nisai immediately arranged for a group of around 500 people to enter the mountains to excavate or under the pretext of hunting magical beasts. At the same time, the leaders of the other 6 territories also sent word back, dispatching trustworthy people from different places to the mountain range. Under the combined efforts of the 7 organizations, the news of the tungsten alloy vein was perfectly covered up. At the same time, the mining operation officially began. Under Jianchen's orders, they began to excavate from the gorge. Jianchen was extremely curious about the mysterious energy 10 kilometers below the gorge. However, there was nothing he could do when faced with the tough tungsten alloy ore. He could only dig out a path manually. The following days were extremely peaceful. In order to cover up the news of the tungsten alloy vein, only Jianchen remained in the area. Including Kai Nisai, the leaders of the 7 organizations remained in their own territories and did not venture out. This was to prevent people with ulterior motives from noticing something and causing the news to leak out. Although that was the case, the 7 of them still had communication tools on them. As soon as something happened to the tungsten alloy vein, they would be able to rush to the territory of the Blood Moon mercenaries as quickly as possible. 10 days later, the large group of people from the Flame mercenaries arrived at the Blood Moon mercenaries' territory. In the end, they temporarily set up camp in the headquarters of the Blood Moon mercenaries. With the addition of 3 Heaven Saint Masters and almost 500 Earth Saint Masters, the strength of the Blood Moon mercenaries' territory had greatly increased. Jianchen did not hide the news of the tungsten alloy vein from Mingdong and the others, but he only told them to a few trustworthy people. Even Warsky and the 3 Heaven Saint Masters, who had joined the Flame mercenaries later on, did not know anything about it. However, when Mingdong and the others learned that there was a huge tungsten alloy vein, all of them dropped their jaws in shock. Such a large tungsten alloy mine is extremely rare on the Tianyuan continent. Once the news of this spreads, it will definitely cause a huge commotion. At that time, even some of the hermit clans and the 8 great kingdoms of the Tianyuan continent will interfere. It'll be very difficult for us to protect it with just our strength, Huang Huan sternly said. Jianchen sternly nodded. We've already sealed off the news. If the news really does leak out in the future, I can only get the Qin Empire to take action. Chapter 597. Jianchen's eyes lit up when he heard Huang Huan's suggestion. Although he did not know what heavenly layer the ancestor of the Huang family was at, he at least knew that the ancestor of the Huang family was able to fend off 2 saint rulers from the Hongfu clan all by himself. It was not difficult to guess just how powerful the ancestor of the Huang family was just from this. If a powerful saint ruler like that appeared to assist him, he would be able to deter quite a few people. If there really is a need when the time comes, I really might need to ask your ancestor to come out and keep watch. Jianchen smiled at Huang Huan. Aside from the 4 imperial protector of the Qin Empire, he only had a relationship with the ancestor of the Huang family. Obviously, he would not miss out on such a great helper. Jianchen's uncle Tian was unfathomably powerful, but he knew that it was impossible for him to invite someone like that. At the same time, Mingdong's uncle Tian was not too willing to interfere with these miscellaneous matters. Even the tungsten alloy mine, which was worth more than purple coins, was not enough to tempt him. The news of the tungsten alloy mine was completely sealed off. Not a single piece of information leaked out. Other than Jianchen's group, only the leaders of the 7 territories and the people responsible for mining the tungsten alloy knew about it. All the people responsible for mining the tungsten alloy had their storage equipment confiscated to prevent people from using communication tools to spread the news. At the same time, their range of movement had been restricted. They were only allowed to move within a radius of 10 kilometers of the gorge and were forbidden from stepping outside. All the members of the Flame mercenaries were stationed in the territory of the Blood Moon mercenaries. However, when the leaders of the 7 organizations learned that the mercenaries were led by Jianchen, they all announced that they would join the Flame mercenaries. With the addition of the 7 of them, the Flame mercenaries' strength skyrocketed once again. They completely took over the territory of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom and made up for the lack of peak experts. Now, aside from Jianchen, there were 10 Heaven Saint Masters in the Flame mercenaries. They had become the most powerful mercenary group in a radius of several tens of thousands of kilometers and were renowned across the region. The following days were extremely peaceful. The tungsten alloy mine continued to be mined in an orderly manner, obtaining large amounts of pure tungsten alloy, or every day. It made Jianqin and the upper echelon of the flame mercenaries so happy that they could not close their mouths. Once we've mined all the tungsten alloy, we'll definitely build a city completely forged from tungsten alloy. Mingdong said this more than once. He was extremely excited. If we use tungsten alloy ore to build a city, it will be the strongest city on the Tianyuan continent without a doubt. It's equivalent to the 7 super cities. Dugafeng, who rarely spoke, would also constantly sigh emotionally. His eyes were filled with anticipation. We also need to use tungsten alloy to forge large amounts of armor and create the most powerful warriors. Bai Lian also cried out in excitement more than once. Everyone had already thought of how to use the tungsten alloy in the future. They were just waiting for the tungsten alloy to be mined. Once the amount reached a certain standard, they would immediately begin. In the blink of an eye, Jianqin had already stayed in the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom for 3 months. During these 3 months, nothing unexpected had happened. The matter of the tungsten alloy mine had been tightly sealed, causing Jianqin's group, who had been on edge all day, to worry for nothing. In the morning, Jianqin slowly opened his eyes as he sat on his bed. He turned his head to look at the scenery outside the window as he could not help but think of little Fatty, whom he had met in Longevity Valley. Back then, I promised little Fatty that I would visit him in Longevity Valley a year later. It's almost been a year and a half now. Looks like it's time for me to visit Longevity Valley, Jianqin softly murmured to himself before leaving his room. A few months ago, he had wanted to return to Longevity Valley to see little Fatty. It was just that he had too many things on hand and could not find the time to do so. Now that the tungsten alloy mine would not have too many problems for the time being, he finally had the time to make a trip back to Longevity Valley. After leaving his room, Jianqin immediately gathered his trusted subordinates and told them that he would be leaving for a period of time. "Jianqin, where are you going?" "Let me go with you," Huang Wan said. She was extremely unwilling to part with Jianqin. Jianqin shook his head. "I have important matters to attend to in Mercenary City. I'll be back very soon. It's best if you all stay here." Huang Wan was disappointed when she heard that. "Jianqin, come back soon." You looked at Jianqin reluctantly. Although she didn't want to be separated from Jianqin, she knew that this was unavoidable. Jianqin nodded. "If nothing unexpected happens, I'll be back very soon." Mingdong came to Jianqin's side and patted Jianqin's shoulder. With a serious face, he said, "Brother, since you insist on going, we can't stop you. But you have to be careful. If you meet anyone from the Jetta family or the Sher family, go to Mercenary City. They won't dare to make a move there." Jianqin chuckled. "Don't worry, I know how to deal with these matters. But unless the saint rulers of the 2 families come personally, they won't be able to stop me." Bai Lian suddenly hugged Jianqin's arm and said sweetly, "Brother, I have a small wish that I hope you can fulfill." Seeing Bai Lian act like a spoiled child, Jianqin smiled and said, "What is it?" "If I can do it, I'll definitely fulfill it." Jianqin loved this little sister of his very much. Bai Lian's bright eyes suddenly fell on the white tiger on Jianqin's shoulder. She giggled. "Brother, can you leave little white behind? Let it play with us." The white tiger was very intelligent and seemed to understand Bai Lian's words. It jumped from Jianqin's left shoulder to his right shoulder as if it had been electrocuted, avoiding Bai Lian. Its 2 small tiger claws tightly wrapped around Jianqin's neck as it stared at Bai Lian with vigilance. The white tiger's behavior infuriated Bai Lian. She glared at the white tiger angrily with her hands on her hips. She said angrily, "Little white, am I really that scary? So much for feeding you so much roasted meat these past few days, and this is how you repay me? You won't even let me hug you." "Whoa!" The white tiger seemed to be rather aggrieved as it made a sound that no one could understand. It hugged Jianqin's neck even tighter, clearly unwilling to be separated from Jianqin. "Forget it, Bai Lian. Little White and Jianqin are inseparable. If you want to keep Little White by your side, it'll be harder than ascending to the heavens. Yu chuckled while covering her mouth. Bai Lian, looks like I won't be able to fulfill your wish because I can't force Little White to do something it doesn't want to do. Jianchen smiled apologetically. AI, then forget it. Bai Lian gloomily glared at Little White. Her face was filled with disappointment. Afterwards, Jianchen bid farewell to everyone and left with the white tiger. Originally, he wanted to leave the white tiger here and did not want to take the white tiger with him. After all, he had to pass through Mercenary City on his way to Longevity Valley, so he could not guarantee his safety. However, it was a pity that the white tiger insisted on following him. No matter what he did, he could not convince the white tiger to follow Jianchen no matter what. In the end, he had no choice but to take the white tiger with him. The weather today was especially good. The sun shone brightly and there were no clouds in the sky. The entire sky was blue. Jianchen flew several thousand meters in the air, heading directly to the Great Zhou country. He planned on using the space gate in the Great Zhou country to head to Mercenary City. Perhaps because the white tiger's strength had increased, its sense of smell was much stronger than before. Whenever Jianchen flew through the forest, it would discover a few heavenly treasures hidden in the weeds or buried in the ground. Moreover, they were all over 1,000 years old, which made Jianchen sigh in amazement. The white tiger's abilities were just as Rum Guinness had said. It was extremely powerful when it came to finding heavenly treasures. After several days of traveling, Jianchen finally approached the border of the Great Zhou country. However, when he was about to enter the Great Zhou country, he suddenly stopped. He floated in the air and thought for a while before turning around and flying in another direction. After several hours of flying, Jianchen was already far away from the Great Zhou country. He arrived in the Zhuya Kingdom, the neighboring country of the Great Zhou country. He finally entered a first-class city in the Zhuya Kingdom called Walorant City. In Walorant City, Jianchen stopped in a secluded alleyway. Then he followed the memories in his head and quickly stopped in front of a mansion. Jianchen stood outside the mansion in a daze as he stared at the sign above the gate with the words Tianqin Clan written on it. These words seemed to have some kind of magic, actually bringing Jianchen's thoughts back to a scene from several years ago. It made Jianchen think of the first time he and Jianchen had come to the city. When he first came to Walorant City, the thing that left the deepest impression on Jianchen was meeting his brother, Qin Shao. Hey, what are you doing? Why are you standing in front of our Tianqin clan's gate like an idiot? Quickly leave this place. Don't keep standing here and block the road. While Jianchen was in a daze, a guard at the gate came to his side and impatiently yelled at him. Jianchen, who was immersed in his memories, was awakened. Looking at the burly man beside him, he cupped his hands with a faint smile and said, I wonder if your Tianqin clan's young master Qin Shao is here? Hearing this, the guard looked over Jianchen. Seeing that Jianchen was wearing luxurious clothes and had an extraordinary appearance, he immediately stopped looking down on him and asked, Who are you? Our young master Qin Shao is not someone that just anyone can meet. This one is Jianchen. I am a friend of your young master Qin Shao. Jianchen cupped his hands and said, although the other party was only a guard, he still treated him with a normal heart. What? You are Jianchen? Chapter 598. Jianchen once again visited the Tianqin clan and was warmly received by them. The patriarch of the Tianqin clan personally received Jianchen in the discussion hall with a few elders. After all, the Tianqin clan did not dare to put on any airs in front of a mercenary king who had obtained first place in the mercenary tournament. At the same time, Jianchen finally saw Qin Shao after so many years. Although so much time had passed, Qin Zhao's appearance had not changed at all. He was the same as before. The only thing that had changed was that he had broken through to Earth Saint Master. Hey, Jianchen, you've finally come. If you still didn't come, I would have gone out to find you. Qin Shao was clearly extremely happy when he saw Jianchen. He rushed up and hugged Jianchen. Jianchen seriously studied Qin Shao and agreed, not bad. You're an Earth Saint Master now. Your talent really is extraordinary. If I remember correctly, you should only be 30 years old right now. TSK, reaching Earth Saint Master at 30 years of age is quite a genius on the entire Tian Yuan continent. Xiao, Ice talent really is quite good. He's the person with the most potential in our Jia kingdom. And half a year ago, the king betrothed his daughter to Xiao. Quite a few other large organizations in the Jia kingdom have come to propose marriage as well. The patriarch of the Tianqin clan chuckled. The patriarch of the Tianqin family chuckled. When he talked about his son, there was unconcealable pride on his face. Really? Qin Xiao, you're already engaged? Jianqin stared at Qin Xiao in surprise. Qin Xiao revealed a rare expression of embarrassment. He chuckled. The wedding date has already been set. I'll be marrying the third princess of the Jia kingdom in 2 years. Jianqin, you and Mingdong have to come to my wedding when the time comes. Of course. We'll definitely come. Jianqin chuckled. He felt happy for Qin Xiao inside as well. Afterwards, Jianqin and Qin Xiao made their way out of the hall. They strolled through the estate of the Tianqin clan as they chatted. At this moment, Qin Xiao suddenly said, Jianqin, I'm also an Earth Saint Master now. Although I'm not as powerful as Brother Mingdong, I can still hold my own. I just happen to have nothing to do in the clan anyway. So why don't I go roaming the Tian Yuan continent with you in the future? Sure, I just happen to have formed a mercenary group, but I lack trustworthy people. If you're willing, why don't you join my mercenary group? Jianqin chuckled. Qin Zhao's eyes lit up. I was just about to bring up the idea of forming a mercenary group with you. Since you've already done it, it'll save me a lot of effort. Oh right, Jianqin, when are we leaving? I've been bored to death in the clan for the past few months. I've wanted to leave a long time ago. Jianqin shook his head with a bitter smile when he saw how impatient Qin Xiao was. He said, It'll probably take a while because I have some matters to attend to in Mercenary City. Once I'm done, I'll take you to the mercenary group I've formed. Suddenly, the gentle sound of a zither rang out from up ahead. It was beautiful and pleasing to the ear. The notes seemed to form a melody that seemed to possess some sort of magical power, immediately attracting the attention of Jianqin and Qin Xiao. The two of them could not help but stop talking. The slight excitement that filled their hearts for meeting each other was slowly soothed by the gentle sound of the zither, allowing them to become as calm as still water. In the pavilion in front of him, a woman in a white dress was sitting there, playing a zither. She seemed to have blended in perfectly with the surrounding scenery. As the beautiful notes were played, the flowers and plants in the surrounding garden seemed to be affected. They swayed their bodies slightly, as if they were dancing to the zither music. My little sister loves playing the zither. Whenever she has nothing to do, she loves to sit here and play the zither. But you have to say, her zither skills have become even more impressive than before. Even I can't help but become intoxicated by her music. Qin Xiao stared at the second miss of the Tianqin clan and sighed emotionally. Yeah, your little sister's zither skills have indeed improved a lot. She can actually affect people's minds with just the sound of the zither. Jianqin also sighed emotionally because just then his mind had actually been affected by the zither music as well. He found it very unbelievable. Jianqin and Qin Xiao walked over and sat down on either side of the stone table. They quietly listened to the zither music played by the second miss of the Tianqin clan. They were not surprised at all. However, the second miss of the Tianqin clan did not seem to notice that two people had suddenly appeared beside her. She did not even move her eyes. She continued to concentrate on playing her zither. She was focused and serious. At that moment, it was as if there was nothing else in her eyes other than the zither music. After a long while, the beautiful music finally stopped. The second miss of the Tianqin clan stopped moving her slender fingers as well. Her gaze finally shifted away from the zither and landed on Jianqin and Qin Xiao beside her. Her phoenix-like eyes flickered with a bright light. They were filled with intelligence, as if they could speak. "Brother, I'm really sorry. I've made you wait. Master Gentian, I never thought you'd come as well." The second miss of the Tianqin clan greeted the two of them with a smile. Her face was still covered by a veil, so her appearance was unclear. Gentian nodded with a smile. Just when he wanted to say something, he heard Qin Zhao's voice. "Sister, it's fine if you wear a veil outside, but why do you always wear one at home?" "I've already gotten used to wearing a veil. If I take it off, I'll feel uncomfortable instead," said the second miss gently. She then looked at Gentian and softly said, "I remember the last time I saw you, Master Gentian. That was over a year ago. I wonder if you've been well since we last met." Gentian smiled resplendently. "I've made the young miss worry. I'm fine. Instead, it's been a year since we last met, but your zither skills have improved at an extremely rapid rate. I've been immersed in the zither ever since I was young. I spend all my time studying it, but I've only made some progress. I'm nowhere near as good as the renowned heavenly enchantress," said the second miss. Gentian's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. He stared at the second miss of the Tianqin clan in surprise and asked, "Does the second miss want to walk the path of the heavenly enchantress and not cultivate Saint Force, only focusing on the zither?" "I think that's most likely the case. My sister has been extremely smart since she was young. Her talent for comprehension is extremely high, and her talent for cultivation is extremely good as well. However, what makes my father and the others helpless is that she just doesn't like cultivating Saint Force. Her Saint Force is still stuck at the 5th layer even though she's already so old. All she does is play the zither when she has nothing to do, and she's been playing it for over a decade. Although her music is pretty good, it's completely useless against enemies," said Qin Xiao helplessly. He felt his head hurt when he saw how infatuated his sister was with the way of the zither. In his opinion, it was a cultivation path with no future. The second miss of the Tianqin clan did not become angered at all when she heard Qin Zhao's reproachful words. She calmly explained, "Brother, you're underestimating the way of the zither far too much. I've only begun learning it. The profoundness and vastness of the way of the zither is far beyond what you can imagine. Once I truly begin cultivating the way of the zither, my battle prowess will be incomparable to the cultivators of the Tian Yuan continent. Aside from the heavenly enchantress, I've never heard of anyone else walking the way of the zither on the Tian Yuan continent. Sister, you don't have the method to cultivate the way of the zither, and you don't even have a person to teach you. It'll be extremely difficult for you to walk this path by yourself. So why don't you just focus on cultivating Saint Force?" Qin Xiao sincerely advised. The second miss shook her head. "That's my goal. I'll spend all my effort to complete it. Even if I don't make any progress in the end, I won't regret it." "Qin Xiao, since the second miss is so infatuated with the way of the zither, let her walk this path. At the same time, although the music I heard from the second miss was nowhere close to the level of being able to control a person's soul, it has reached a certain level of maturity. As long as the second miss continues to study it, I believe she'll definitely achieve something with her talent," Gentian said. Qin Xiao secretly sighed when he heard Gentian's words. He really did not approve of his sister taking such a difficult and arduous path. "Thank you for your encouragement, young Master Gentian. My name is Qin. Young Master Gentian. Please call me by my name in the future. You don't have to call me the second miss all the time." The second miss smiled. The second miss of the Tianqin clan said with a smile. However, because her face was covered by a veil, her smile could not be seen. Qin. Gentian murmured softly. He smiled, so the second miss name is Qin. It's a very nice name. I'll call you by that name in the future. Qin's eyes shone brightly. She stared at Gentian for a while with her eyes that seemed to be able to speak. Afterward, she nodded slightly and said nothing. She continued to look at the zither on the stone table. Her slender fingers gently stroked the strings, producing melodious notes. Jianchen stared at the zither on the stone table. After a moment of thought, he said, "Miss Qin, I was fortunate enough to meet the heavenly enchantress once in Mercenary City. If I meet her again in the future, I'll definitely introduce you to her and see if she can give you some pointers." Qin's eyes lit up. She gratefully said, "Then I'll have to trouble you, young master Jianchen. Becoming the heavenly enchantress disciple has always been my greatest wish." Jianchen did not waste too much time in the Tianqin clan. He chatted with Qin and Qin Shao for a while. In the end, he agreed with Qin Shao that he would come back to pick him up once he was done with his matters. He left Wallerant City and headed for the great Zhou Empire. The rest of the journey was extremely smooth. Jianchen was warmly received by the king when he arrived in the great Zhou Empire. He then passed through a space gate in the great Zhou Empire without any obstructions, crossing several 100,000 kilometers and appearing in a forest very close to Mercenary City. Chapter 599. Mercenary City was located at the very center of the Tianyuan continent. The entire city had been constructed at the very center of the continent. Although there were no walls, the amount of land the city occupied was no less than the 7 capital cities of the continent. It was the most famous city on the continent. In the eyes of the mercenaries, Mercenary City symbolized a divine power. It was a sacred place that could not be profaned, symbolizing freedom and peace. This was because Mercenary City did not have as many rules and regulations as other cities. Everyone was equal in Mercenary City, and there was no difference between the strong and the weak. Even a Heaven Saint Master and a commoner possessed the same status. There was no such thing as the strong preying on the weak. This was because fighting was forbidden in Mercenary City. Once inside, no matter how powerful you were, you would not be able to use it. Without a doubt, this prohibition made Mercenary City the safest place of refuge on the Tianyuan continent. This was because there was no need to worry about being hunted down by your enemies if you stayed there. Although there had been many people who had broken this rule in the past, it was impossible for anyone who broke the rule to survive, even if they were peak Heaven Saint Masters. At the same time, there had never been any rumors of a murder in Mercenary City. The only thing that could prove one's status in Mercenary City was money. As long as one had money, they could enjoy the superior treatment of a ruler. Without money, they could only sleep on the streets. Even eating would be a problem. Jianchen flew through the air with the white tiger in his arms. From afar, he could already see a large cluster of buildings standing in front of him. In the sky, he could vaguely see an extremely huge, transparent barrier that seemed to envelop the entire region, enveloping the entire Mercenary City. Jianchen became lost in thought as he stared at the huge barrier. He had come to Mercenary City once in the past, so he had a rough understanding of the place. He vaguely knew a few things. It seemed like the prohibition against fighting in Mercenary City was closely related to the huge barrier in the sky. Mercenary City did not have walls, so the roads leading into the city extended in all directions. Mercenaries and carriages carrying large amounts of goods constantly entered the city from all directions. Even though Mercenary City did not send any guards to maintain order, the mercenaries who entered the city all suppressed their wild nature and entered the city in an orderly manner. Everything seemed to be in order. Jianchen landed a few kilometers away from the barrier before making his way toward Mercenary City. He passed through the barrier without any obstructions and entered the city. As soon as he entered Mercenary City, Jianchen went to a place that sold magical beast mounts and bought a Class 3 magical beast mount for transportation. Mercenary City was just too large, and flying was forbidden in the city. As a result, he could only travel on a magical beast mount. Jianchen weaved through the bustling streets on his magical beast mount, buying all sorts of delicacies. He had prepared all of these for the villagers of Longevity Valley, Uncle Xiao, and the others, especially Little Fatty. He had never left Longevity Valley, so he did not know about the outside world. Of course, He had never tasted the delicacies of the outside world before. Jianchen strolled through the bustling streets for half a day. He used the large amount of purple coins stored in his space ring to buy things like crazy. Only after filling up 5 space belts did he finally stop. He then rode his magical beast mount to the largest medicinal store in Mercenary City. An hour later, Jianchen stopped outside a 5-story castle. This was one of the stores in Mercenary City that specialized in selling all sorts of heavenly resources and precious medicinal ingredients. Woo! The white tiger in Jianchen's embrace had already smelled the fragrance of heavenly resources before he had even entered the store. It cried out urgently and excitedly in Jianchen's embrace. If it were not for Jianchen's tight embrace, it probably would have charged in by itself. Jianchen could not help but smile when he saw how impatient the white tiger was. As heavenly resources over 1,000 years old were just too rare in the kingdom of Jessen, it had been a very long time since the white tiger had tasted heavenly resources. It was starving. Jianchen strode in with the white tiger in his arms. There were many more people in the store than he had imagined. There were over 100 people dressed as mercenaries or merchants picking out things inside. A few attendants were extremely busy inside. However, he could tell from their conversations that they were all here to buy medicinal ingredients. A few mercenaries were here to sell heavenly resources that were several hundred years old. Jianchen looked around and discovered that the first floor of the store was mostly selling precious medicinal ingredients. As for heavenly resources, there was not even a single one for display. This was not the first time Jianchen had come to such a large store. He knew that the most important items were usually sold on the higher floors. Jianchen did not stop at the first floor and continued on to the second floor. When he arrived at the second floor, other than precious medicinal ingredients, there were already some heavenly resources for sale. However, almost all of them were under 500 years old. It was bustling with activity. Jianchen did not stop at all and continued on to the third floor. However, when he arrived at the staircase leading to the third floor, he was stopped by a guard. "I'm sorry, Your Excellency. The third floor is only open to VIPs with purple gold cards." The guard's tone was rather polite. Jianchen did not say anything. Several purple gold cards appeared in his hand at the same time. Seeing the purple gold cards, the guard did not stop him. He immediately put on a smiling face and invited Jianchen up. The fourth floor was very quiet. Only a few people were bargaining with the waiters. Here, Jianchen finally saw a few sealed heavenly resources placed on display. The price was marked, and the lowest price was over 10,000 purple gold. Some of the older rare species were even priced at over 100,000 purple gold. It could be said that they were very expensive. Looking at the heavenly resources that were over 1,000 years old, the white tiger's eyes immediately became straight. It kept licking its lips and had a covetous expression. "Young master, how may I be of service to you?" A female waitress around 20 years old came in front of Jianchen. Jianchen slowly made his way to a display and stared at a well-preserved heavenly resource. He said, "I want to discuss a big deal with you. Call over your manager, who can make the decision." The waitress glanced at Jianchen in surprise, but she did not dare to object. After calling out to Jianchen, she went to find the person in charge. Very soon, a middle-aged woman in luxurious robes with heavy makeup was invited out by the waitress who had left earlier. She directly arrived before Jianchen. The waitress smiled and explained to Jianchen, "Young master, this is our manager." The middle-aged woman studied Jianchen and smiled. "My name is Ochre. I am the manager of this store. May I ask how I should address you, young master? You give me a familiar feeling, as if I've seen you somewhere before." Jianchen smiled and said, "Manager Ochre, let's get down to business. May I ask how many 1,000-year-old heavenly resources you have in your store?" Seeing that Jianchen didn't want to reveal his identity, Manager Ochre tactfully didn't continue to ask. She smiled and said, "We do have some heavenly resources in stock, but there aren't many thousand-year-old ones. We only have 28 of them. Since young master is asking me this question, could it be that you want to buy all of these heavenly resources?" Manager Ochre, calculate the total price of these 28 heavenly resources, Jianqin said calmly. Ochre was slightly surprised when she heard that. She asked uncertainly, "Young master, do you really want to buy all 27 heavenly resources? That's quite a large sum of money." Jianqin nodded slightly and did not say anything else. After receiving confirmation, Qi-er's face also revealed a happy expression. Purchasing more than 20,000-year-old heaven and earth treasures in one go. Such a generous guest was very rare. Ochre immediately took out an abacus and began calculating. She quickly calculated the price and said, "Young master, these 26 heavenly resources are of different ages. Some are over 1,000 years old, some are 2,000 or 3,000 years old, and some are extremely rare. As a result, the price of each heavenly resource is different as well. The total price of these 26 heavenly resources is 1,030,000 purple coins. If you're sure you want to buy all of them in one go, then we'll round it down and only charge you 1,000,000 purple coins. Is that acceptable?" "All right, that's it. 26 heavenly resources are 1,000,000 purple coins in total." Jianqin straightforwardly took out a purple gold card and gave it to Ochre. He knew a little about the price of heavenly resources. Although the price varied from region to region, Ochre's price was still fair. Moreover, these 1,000-year-old heavenly resources were still priceless in some small regions. Ochre accepted the purple gold card excitedly. "If you need more 1,000-year-old heavenly resources in the future, please come find me. I'll give you a discount." Jianqin pondered slightly and said, "Manager Ochre, do you have any 10,000-year-old heavenly resources here?" "What, 10,000-year-old heavenly resources?" Ochre was surprised. She stared at Jianqin in surprise and said, "Young master, 10,000-year-old heavenly resources are not as easy to find as 1,000-year-old heavenly resources. 10,000-year-old heavenly resources are treasures that can only be found through luck. They are very difficult to find on the market, but the price of each one is extremely high. After all, they are treasures that can allow people to be reborn. They are also known as elixirs of immortality. Many experts at the end of their lifespans will use these treasures to extend their lives. Then may I ask if Manager Ochre knows where I can buy 10,000-year-old heavenly resources?" Jianqin asked. Chapter 600. Jianqin clasped his hands. "Thank you for the information, Manager Ochre. May I ask where the annual auction of Mercenary City is held? After all, there are quite a few auction houses in Mercenary City." Ochre giggled. "It looks like the young master is not familiar with Mercenary City. You don't even know something as basic as this. Since that's the case, allow me to tell the young master." Ochre paused slightly before continuing. "Young master, there are indeed quite a few auctions in Mercenary City. These auctions are all privately owned, but there's an even larger auction house in the center of Mercenary City. The young master just needs to ask around and you'll know its exact location. This auction house is different from other auction houses. It's held by the people of Mercenary City, and it's only held once a year. A few extremely rare items, such as 10,000-year-old heavenly resources, will appear in the auction every time. The 10,000-year-old heavenly resources that the young master needs will also appear in the auction once a year, and only one will appear each time. However, 10,000-year-old heavenly resources are just too rare, so there are many people fighting over them. If the young master is determined to obtain a 10,000-year-old heavenly resource, you have to prepare a large amount of purple coins." "Thank you for the information, Manager Ochre." Jianqin clasped his hands in gratitude. Qi giggled and said, "Young noble is too polite. This is only a trivial matter. there is no need to be so grateful. As long as young noble can come and take care of our shop more in the future, this concubine will be very grateful." With that, Ochre returned the violet card to Gentian. At the same time, she handed over an exquisite space belt and said, "Young master, this is your violet card. Please take care of it. The 26 heavenly resources you've purchased are all in this space belt. Please check it." Gentian accepted the card and stored it in his space ring. He then checked the contents of his space belt and nodded in satisfaction. After bidding farewell to Ochre, he left. Ochre slowly made her way to the window. She stared at Gentian's figure that gradually disappeared down the street and frowned slightly. She murmured softly, "Just who is that person? Strange. Why does he seem so familiar to me? As if I've seen him somewhere before. But I haven't left Mercenary City in all these years, so I don't think I've come into contact with anyone other than a few familiar people, especially such a young man." Gentian was riding a Class 3 magical beast as he walked through the bustling streets. In his arms, the snow-white white tiger was using its front paws to hold a carrot-sized treasure and wolfing it down. Its small, sparkling eyes were filled with the radiance of happiness. To it, the time it spent happily eating the heavenly treasure was the most wonderful and blissful moment in the world. Gentian gently watched the white tiger's cute scene. He could not help but smile faintly. After spending some time together, the white tiger held an extremely important place in his heart. Seeing the white tiger happy made him very happy as well. Gentian arrived at the center of Mercenary City on his mount. After asking a few passers-by, he finally found the auction site set up by Mercenary City. The auction site set up by Mercenary City was extremely large. It was a huge building that stood over 30 meters tall. It was grand and magnificent, taking up an extremely large area in the center of the city where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. From afar, it seemed like a primordial beast crouching on the ground. "Ah, Stardust! That's Stardust! Master, master, I found Stardust!" Suddenly, Ziying's excited voice rang out in Gentian's head. "Master, go and get the Stardust. It's an extremely rare material for forging artifacts. It's extremely valuable," Qing Suo excitedly said. Gentian was pleasantly surprised when he heard the excited cries of the sword spirits. He knew that this was another high-level material for forging the twin swords. If he could obtain this material, he would be one step closer to forging the twin swords. "Ziying, Qing Suo, where is the Stardust?" Gentian asked. He did not recognize the Stardust. If it were not for the sword spirits, he probably would not have been able to recognize it even if it was placed right before him. As soon as Gentian finished speaking, a profound feeling appeared in his head. At that moment, a strand of his mind seemed to be attracted by a strange force, connecting with a mysterious object. He could accurately sense its location. Gentian subconsciously looked at the huge auction site set up by Mercenary City. He could clearly sense the location of the Stardust through the connection in his head. It was actually within the auction site. "Master, you must obtain the Stardust. Once the Stardust is added to the newly forged twin swords, the quality of the twin swords will increase. Even though it's nowhere near the quality of a god artifact, it'll still be a supreme quality treasure at the very least." Qing Suo's excited voice rang out in Gentian's head. "The Stardust is an immortal tier material for forging artifacts. I never thought that it would appear here. Master, you must obtain it no matter what price you have to pay." Ziying's voice was rather urgent. She placed great importance on the Stardust. Gentian also became stern when he saw how Ziying and Qing Suo placed such importance on the Stardust. He stared at the auction site with burning desire for a while before leaving on his Class 3 magical beast. The Stardust was in the auction site. The auction had not officially started yet, so it was impossible to enter the auction site. Everything could only wait until the auction officially started in 2 days. Perhaps the stardust would directly appear in the auction. Afterwards, Jianqin strolled through the streets. He went to many large stores that sold precious medicinal ingredients and bought over 50,000-year-old heavenly resources, spending over 2 million purple coins. Jianqin did not feel the slightest bit of heartache. The white tiger's growth was just too slow. It took much more time than normal magical beasts. The only way for it to grow quickly was to eat large amounts of heavenly resources. In his opinion, as long as the white tiger could quickly grow stronger, it did not matter how much money he had to spend. At the same time, Jianqin did not lack money. He had obtained a large amount of purple coins and other valuable items from the space rings of the Heaven Saint Masters he had killed. He had also plundered the treasuries of the Pingyang Kingdom and the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, obtaining a large amount of purple coins and monster cores. As a result, Jianqin had basically become a moving treasury. Jianqin strolled through the bustling streets until evening before finally stopping to rest. He then found an inn to stay in and awaited the auction in 2 days. Not only were there 10,000-year-old heavenly resources at the auction this time, it was also very likely that he would come across stardust, an important material for forging the azulite swords. As a result, Jianqin could not miss this annual auction. He had no choice but to delay his journey to Longevity Valley until 2 days later. At night, Jianqin cultivated on his bed in a luxurious room. He hoped to reach the limit of his comprehension of the energy of the world as soon as possible, so that he could comprehend the mysteries of the world through a small stone tablet with a Saint Tier battle skill inscribed on it and break through to Saint Ruler. Beside him, the little white tiger that had gobbled up the 3 heavenly treasures was lying there in a deep sleep to digest the medicinal effects. The candles in the room had been extinguished long ago, so it was completely dark. It was so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. In the sky above Mercenary City, the huge barrier that enveloped the entire city suddenly rippled slightly. Afterwards, a girl's voice rang out in the surroundings. It was extremely soft. "It's Master sent. It's Master sent. That's strange. Hasn't Master already left this world? Why do I smell Master scent? Has Master returned?" The clear voice rang out in the pitch-black sky of Mercenary City. Strangely, the voice did not travel very far in the silent night. "It's Master scent. It's so faint, so faint. Has Master really returned?" The clear voice rang through the surroundings again and again, filled with undisguised excitement. It quickly drifted toward the city, but what was strange was that only the voice could be heard and the person was nowhere to be seen. I found it. It's here, it's here. Master's scent comes from here. It's so faint, so faint. Hee. Master must have returned. Master must be testing me. Hee. Xiaoling's nose is really sharp. No matter how faint Master's scent is, I can find it immediately." When the clear voice rang out again, it was already outside a luxurious inn on the street. Before it had even finished speaking, it had already entered the inn. Within the room, Jianqin's ears twitched gently as he sat on the bed. His closed eyes suddenly snapped open, and in that moment, 2 streaks of light seemed to shoot out from his eyes. They disappeared in a flash, like a lamp in the pitch-black room. Jianqin glanced around the room with a sharp gaze. The darkness in the room did not affect him at all, allowing him to see clearly even in the darkness. Who's speaking?" Jianqin called out softly as he became stern. He had heard someone speak extremely clearly earlier, but he could not sense anyone in the surroundings. He immediately became extremely cautious. Even though he was in Mercenary City, he did not lower his guard at all. Chapter 601. Jianqin suddenly flipped through the air and landed firmly on the ground. He cautiously looked around and expanded the senses of his soul, enveloping the entire inn in an attempt to find the person who had spoken. However, to his disappointment, he failed to discover anything. The voice that had just appeared beside his ear and was extremely clear did not seem to come from a human. The voice was different from the communication techniques of saint rulers, because the communication techniques of saint rulers directly rang out in his ears. It was impossible to find the source of the voice, unlike before where he could accurately pinpoint the source of the voice. Moreover, it was right beside him. This strange sight made his hair stand on end, as if an invisible ghost was speaking beside him. Who's speaking? Jianqin became extremely stern. This was the first time he had seen something so strange. Perhaps in response to Jianqin's question, the dark room suddenly lit up. Strands of light gathered in the room, gradually condensing into the figure of a person. It was a little girl wearing a long pink dress. She looked to be around 12 or 13 years old. She was very cute, but the only flaw was that the little girl's figure was illusory. She was not solid. Her body seemed to be formed entirely by light. With her appearance, the darkness in the room was completely dispelled, becoming brighter. Jianqin's eyes narrowed to the size of needles. He stared at the girl closely, as if he had seen a ghost. "Who are you?" Jianqin called out in a deep voice. He had already become extremely cautious against the girl who did not seem to be a threat at all. She was just too strange. The girl looked at Jianqin curiously before circling around him a few times. She constantly glanced at Jianqin and mumbled to herself in confusion, "So faint, so faint. Master scent is so faint, but you're clearly not my master. Oi, who are you?" Jianqin was completely confused by the girl's words, but Jianqin did not lower his guard at all. He replied, "I am Jianqin. May I ask who you are? Why have you come to my room?" "Jianqin?" The girl frowned slightly as she pondered. She asked subconsciously, "Who is Jianqin?" "Jianqin is me." Jianqin's facial muscles twitched gently. The girl's gaze once again fell on Jianqin. "You're Jianqin?" No, you're not my master. My master's name is not Jianqin, and he's not as weak as you. But strange. Why do I smell my master's scent? Could it be that I'm mistaken? Impossible, impossible. I definitely can't be mistaken about my master's scent. Although it's very faint, I can still distinguish it." The girl rolled her eyes a few times before suddenly giggling at Jianqin. "Big brother, can you tell Xiaoling if you've seen my master somewhere? Where is my master now? Why hasn't he come back to see Xiaoling for so long? Does he not want Xiaoling anymore and forgot about Xiaoling?" Towards the end, the girl's eyes turned slightly red, as if she was about to cry. She was very aggrieved and sad. Seeing the girl's pitiful appearance, Jianqin's heartstrings were deeply touched. It was as if he saw a child who had lost her parents, painstakingly searching for her lost parents. She was so helpless, so lonely. "Little girl, can you tell me who you are? And who is your master? Perhaps I've seen him somewhere before." Jianqin probed. In his mind, he quickly thought of all the important figures he knew. "I'm Xiaoling, but others call me the Boundary Spirit. As for my master, you should know. He's the city lord of this city." The girl replied, "The city lord of this city." Jianqin stared blankly for a moment before muttering to himself. He seemed to be thinking about who the city lord of this city was. But soon after, Jianqin's expression changed greatly as he cried out in surprise, "What did you say? Your master is the city lord of Mercenary City?" That's right, that's right. My master is the city lord of Mercenary City. Big brother, you really do know my master. Can you tell me where my master is right now?" "Big brother, I beg you," the girl excitedly said. Towards the end, her words gradually turned into pleading. She looked at Jianqin pitifully. Jianqin gasped as he stared at the girl who did not seem to be older than 12 or 13. Disbelief flooded his face. There had only been one city lord of Mercenary City since ancient times, and that was the greatest expert of the Tian Yuan continent, Mo Tianyin. The master of the girl was actually the greatest expert of the Tian Yuan continent in the past, Mo Tianyin. It was impossible for Jianqin not to be shocked by this. After quite a while, Gentian finally calmed down. He stared at the girl in fright and questioned, "Little girl, is what you just said true? The city lord of Mercenary City, Tianyan, is your master?" Even now, Jianqin was willing to believe that he had misheard. Yeah, he's Xiaoling's master. Xiaoling will never forget him. Back then, master was the one who gave me the name Xiaoling. It's just that master left for a very long time and never came to visit Xiaoling. Xiaoling really misses master, the girl said with a sad expression. The little girl said with a lonely expression. At this moment, her petite figure looked so lonely. Jianqin's shock could no longer be described with words. He stared at the girl in front of him in shock, unable to return to his senses even after quite some time. Was this strange girl really from the same generation as Tianyan? Jianqin suddenly realized an extremely terrifying problem when he thought up to there. His heart could not help but tremble. If the girl really was from the same generation as Tianyan, just how long had she lived? Big brother, I beg you to tell little Ling where master is, okay? Why hasn't he come to visit Xiaoling in so long? Xiaoling really misses master. The girl stared at Jianqin with teary eyes. She seemed so pitiful that anyone who saw her would feel pity for her. Looking at the girl's pitiful appearance, Jianqin also felt a trace of pity for her. However, the girl's words were so shocking that even Jianqin did not know how to reply. Tianyan was a figure from the ancient era. Even though he was the most powerful person in the continent, he could not withstand the erosion of time and had already passed away many years ago. All that was left was his illustrious reputation. How could Jianqin have seen Tianyan before? Big brother, I beg you, can you please tell Xiaoling where master has gone? Seeing that Jianqin did not respond, the girl asked again, her voice filled with pleading. Jianqin secretly sighed inside. He looked at the girl in a rather shaken state. After a moment of thought, he said, "Little sister, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. I've never seen your master before." "That's impossible. Big brother, you're lying to Xiaoling. Xiaoling's nose is very sensitive. You can't lie to Xiaoling. Big brother, you have master sent on you. You must have seen master before." The girl pouted. Her face was filled with disbelief. Jianqin shook his head with a bitter smile. "Little girl, you must be mistaken. I really haven't seen your master. Although your master is the greatest expert on the continent, so much time has passed. Your master has already passed away when the end of his life is near. Big brother, you're lying. Master is so powerful that he has already surpassed the limits of his lifespan. He lives as long as the world, so how could he have passed away? Big brother, you can't lie to Xiaoling." Xiaoling grumbled somewhat angrily. She was extremely dissatisfied with Jianqin saying that her master had passed away. Jianqin rubbed his temples with a headache. He really had no idea how to deal with this girl with a rather frightening background. "Big brother, I beg you, can you just tell Xiaoling where master is?" "Xiaoling will definitely repay you," the little girl repeated over and over again. "Little sister, it's not that I don't want to tell you, but I really haven't seen your master," Jianqin said helplessly. The little girl was a little anxious. With a sullen face, she sobbed, But you clearly have master sent on you. Although it's very faint, you can't hide it from little Ling. Big brother, you must have seen master before." "Have I?" Jianqin carefully checked his body. He also found it very strange. Why did the girl always say that she had Tianyan sent on him? However, he was certain that he had never seen Tianyan before. Suddenly, a thought flashed through Jianqin's head. He said, "Little sister, perhaps I have something your master once left behind on me, which is why you can sense your master's scent. Is that really the case? Big brother, you really haven't seen my master?" The girl's face was filled with indescribable sorrow and desolation. "I swear that I, Jianqin, have never seen your master." Even though Jianqin could not bear to make such a cute girl sad, He could only do this in order to completely dispel the misunderstanding in her heart. The girl was stunned. She stood there and stared blankly at the serious Jianqin, as if she did not dare to accept this reality. After remaining in this position for a few breaths, she suddenly burst into tears. She sobbed, "Master, just where are you? Do you really not want Xiaoling anymore? Xiaoling really misses you. Master, just where are you?" The girl cried very sadly. As she cried, her body constantly faded, gradually disappearing from Jianqin's eyes. The room sank into darkness once more. "Woo, Master, just where are you? Come back quickly and see Xiaoling. Xiaoling really misses you." The girl's desolate and sorrowful cries constantly rang out in the pitch-black night. Her voice constantly drifted into the distance, echoing throughout the entire sky before finally fading away. Jianqin seemed to be affected by the girl's sorrowful cries. His heart became heavy, and he began to feel pity for the girl who had just appeared from the depths of his heart. Jianqin lit the candle again before opening the window to look at the scenery outside. It was already 3 in the morning, and Mercenary City was silent. No one seemed to have heard the girl's cries earlier. Jianqin closed the window and sat down beside the bed. He pulled out 3 palm-sized, snow-white beast furs from his space ring and carefully studied them in his hand. This was because the 3 beast furs of unknown origins were the most mysterious items on him. In the past, it was one of the 3 beast furs that had caused the destruction of the Bai family with a saint ruler. Chapter 602. Although Jianqin guessed that the 3 beast skins might have been left behind by Mo Tianyan, he had no idea what kind of secrets were hidden within them. If they were a treasure map, there were no patterns or lines on them. They seemed like extremely ordinary beast skins. The only difference was that the 3 beast skins were extremely flexible and indestructible. Jianqin flipped the 3 hides around and studied them for quite a while. In the end, he stowed them away in his space ring, unable to find anything. This was something that had caused the destruction of the powerful Bai family, so Jianqin did not dare to expose it. Afterwards, Jianqin stayed in the inn for 2 days without setting a foot outside. He only left the inn when the annual auction of Mercenary City began 2 days later. During these 2 days, the girl called Xiaoling did not appear again. Early in the morning, Jianqin carried the sleeping white tiger to the auction of Mercenary City. He spent 10 purple coins to purchase a ticket and slowly entered the auction through the bustling crowd. The auction was extremely large. It was divided into 7 floors, and every floor was packed with seats. There were at least 10,000 of them at a glance. If the 7 floors were connected, they would be able to hold at least 100,000 people. In this auction held by Mercenary City, there were no VIP rooms set up. There were only the same ordinary seats. Regardless of whether one was the head of a family with a great reputation or an unknown traveling merchant, their status was completely equal. There was no advantage to be had. Jianqin carried the sleeping white tiger to an inconspicuous corner and sat down. He waited excitedly for the auction to begin. 2 hours later, the auction was filled with people. Even though there were almost 100,000 people, the place was extraordinarily quiet. Everyone sat there and waited quietly. No one made a ruckus. There were even very few people who whispered to each other. Even if there was something, they communicated with their gazes. Suddenly, the originally bright light dimmed. An entire auction house fell into darkness. After the darkness lasted for a moment, several strong beams of light suddenly appeared, radiating intense light onto the high platform at the front, illuminating the entire platform. On the stage, a beautiful woman had appeared out of nowhere. From her appearance, she looked to be in her 30s. She wore a green gauze dress that completely revealed her devilish figure. At this moment, she was standing in front of a long table with a small wooden mallet in her hand. Jianqin did not even need to think to know that she was the host of the auction when he saw the beautiful woman. However, what surprised him was that she was actually a Heaven Saint Master. If Heaven's Saint Masters were placed in the kingdom of Jessen, they would definitely be people of great statuses. Yet now, an expert like that had personally come to host the auction. Only Mercenary City would be able to do something so extravagant. After the host of the auction said some pleasantries, the auction began. Precious and rare treasures were presented from the back for everyone to bid on. The auction venue, which had been quiet for a long time, finally ushered in a moment of uproar. The sound of bidding continued to ring out from all directions. One mid-earth tier battle skill suitable for fire-attributed Saint Force. The starting price is 500,000 purple gold. One class 7 radiant spirit pill. If a heavily injured person consumes this pill, they'll be able to recover in less than 10 minutes. The starting price is 700,000 purple gold. One class 6 monster core. This is a high-class monster core that's extremely difficult to obtain on the Tianyuan continent. You can't miss this opportunity. The starting price is 400,000 purple gold. One after another, extremely precious and rare items were brought up. Every item that was brought up would cause many people to fiercely bid for it. As a result, the final price of each item was at least 3 times the starting price. Very quickly, for hours passed. At this time, the auctioneer held an exquisite, classical treasure box in his hand. As the box was slowly opened, a rich fragrance drifted out and spread to every corner of the auction venue, causing the spirits of everyone who smelled this fragrance to be uplifted. Jianqin, who sat in the corner, also became alert. He stared at the box in the host's hand with shining eyes. He knew that this was one of the items he needed. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure everyone is familiar with this item. The item in the box in my hand is an extremely rare heavenly resource. It's called the Earth Core Fruit. It grows in spiritual soil where the energy of the world gathers, and it has existed for over 10,000 years. It's an extremely rare heavenly resource that's over 10,000 years old. Not only does it have the effect of rejuvenating a person, it can also extend their lifespan. If an Earth Saint Master or Heaven Saint Master who is nearing the end of their lifespan were to consume this fruit, they would be able to extend their lifespan by 200 years, helping them break through to a higher level of cultivation. The appearance of the Earth Core fruit immediately caused many old people who were nearing the end of their lifespans to burn with desire. All those who could become Heaven Saint Masters had accumulated quite a lot of wealth, or they had the support of a powerful organization. When they were about to reach the end of their lifespans, worldly possessions like wealth were not that important in their eyes. Their own lives were the most important. The host smiled as she glanced at the people in front of her. She continued, "All right, I won't waste everyone's precious time. I'm sure everyone understands the value of this Earth Core fruit. If you need it, you can't miss it. I now announce that the auction for the Earth Core fruit will begin. The base price is 500,000 purple gold, and each bid must not be lower than 10,000 purple gold. 550,000 purple gold." As soon as the host finished speaking, someone impatiently called out a bid, directly increasing the price by 50,000 purple gold. 600,000 purple gold. Another person beside Jianqin called out a bid. It was a burly, middle-aged man. He wore a set of tight purple robes. Although his appearance was ordinary, his eyes shone brightly. His eyebrows were raised high, making him seem like a divine sword that radiated with a sharp sword intent. A Heaven Saint Master. Jianqin was secretly surprised when he sensed the middle-aged man's strength. Mercenary City really was a place where experts gathered. Heaven Saint Masters that were rarely seen outside did not seem to be that rare here. 700,000 purple gold. 800,000 purple gold. The bidding for the Earth Core fruit was still going on fiercely. In a short period of time, the price had risen to a sky-high price of 1 million purple gold coins. This price was enough to buy dozens of thousands of years old heavenly treasures. 1,300,000 purple gold. An old voice rang out from above. An old man sitting on the floor above had called out a bid. Now that the price had reached such a level, the number of people bidding gradually decreased. 1,350,000 purple gold. The middle-aged man beside Jianqin gritted his teeth as if he had almost reached his limit. 1,400,000 purple gold. Another old man immediately called out an even higher price. The middle-aged man sighed in disappointment and murmured, "Whatever, I'll just fight for it in the next auction." An indescribable sense of regret appeared on the middle-aged man's face. Jianqin clearly heard the middle-aged man's murmur. He casually glanced at the middle-aged man before moving his gaze away and continuing to watch the bidding. 1,700,000 purple gold. 1,800,000 purple gold. The bidding for the earth core fruit continued extremely intensely. Very soon, the price had approached 2 million purple gold. Although the difference in age between a 10,000-year-old heavenly resource and a 1,000-year-old heavenly resource only differed by a few years, the only advantage of a 10,000-year-old heavenly resource was that it could prolong a person's life. Because of this, the price of a 10,000-year-old heavenly resource was many times that of a 1,000-year-old heavenly resource. At the same time, 10,000-year-old heavenly resources were extremely rare treasures. This was because there were just too few heavenly resources that could truly withstand 10,000-year-old heavenly resources. Many of them were only a few hundred years old or 1,000 years old before they were taken away by magical beasts or humans. As a result, cultivating a 10,000-year-old heavenly resource was an extremely difficult matter. 2,800,000 purple gold. Jianqin finally no longer remained silent. He called out a shocking price, directly raising the price by 1 million purple gold. Because he understood that there were still many people who had the intention to compete for this heavenly resource. If he wanted them to retreat, he had to show a strong side. This time, the auction venue was quiet for a moment. 2,800,000 purple gold. This undoubtedly eliminated a portion of the people who wanted to bid. The middle-aged man sitting beside Jianqin stared at Jianqin in astonishment. He chuckled and said, "This little brother is really bold. You are actually willing to spend so much money to buy the earth core fruit. Presumably, this little brother must be taking it back to show respect to your elders." Hearing this, Jianqin smiled and shook his head. The middle-aged man laughed heartily and said, "Looks like I guessed wrong. Could it be that this little brother is keeping it for his own use? A 10,000-year-old heavenly resource can increase a person's strength by quite a bit, especially when breaking through from Great Saint Master to Earth Saint Master. If you have the assistance of a 10,000-year-old heavenly resource, then the success rate will be 100%. There is simply no need to worry about failing the breakthrough and becoming a cripple or directly dying." Hearing this, Jianqin's eyes suddenly lit up. He stared closely at the middle-aged man and cupped his hands. "Brother, you just said that if a great Saint Master consumes a 10,000-year-old heavenly resource, then they will be able to smoothly break through to Earth Saint Master and won't fail. Of course, this is no secret on the Tianyuan continent. If this little brother doesn't believe me, you can ask any of the older generation people. It's just that the price of a 10,000-year-old heavenly resource is extremely high. In the entire Tianyuan continent, there aren't many large clans that are willing to waste such a precious treasure on a great Saint Master." The middle-aged man said, 3 million purple gold. At this moment, another bid rang out. Chapter 603. When the price reached a high price of 3,500,000 purple gold coins, another portion of the crowd gave up on bidding. At this time, the rest of the people who were interested in this heaven and earth treasure also hesitated, weighing in their hearts whether or not they should continue to bid. Although heaven and earth treasures that were 10,000 years old were very rare in the outside world, one would appear in Mercenary City every year and would not go extinct. If they did not have the opportunity this time, they could wait until the next time. 3,600,000 purple gold coins. The auction house was silent for a moment before another bid was made. For million purple gold coins. Jianqin immediately bid an even higher price. At this moment, although he looked calm, his heart was in pain. For million purple gold coins was enough for him to buy over 100 heaven and earth treasures. It seems that little brother is determined to obtain the earth's core fruit. This one is Hu Shaotian. How should I address you, little brother? The middle-aged man, sitting beside Jianqin, said to Jianqin with a smile. Jianqin turned his head to size up this middle-aged man named Hu Shaotian. Seeing this middle-aged man's righteous and magnanimous face, he should not be a scheming person. So he smiled and said, "This one is Jianqin." Jianqin, could it be that you are that Jianqin who obtained first place in the last mercenary tournament and won the title of Mercenary King? Hu Shaotian stared at Jianqin with a face full of surprise. "That's me," Jianqin said. Hu Shaotian was clearly startled, but he immediately recovered. He cupped his hands and said with a smile, "So it is Mercenary King, Jianqin. Nice to meet you. Unfortunately, this one was busy during the last mercenary tournament, so I did not go to watch the battle. Otherwise, I would definitely have been able to see young hero Jianqin display his skills in the arena." Next, Jianqin and Hu Shaotian casually chatted as they participated in the bidding war. In the end, they purchased the 10,000-year-old heavenly material for a high price of 8 million. At the same time, Jianqin, who was sitting in the corner, also attracted the attention of many people. Many people cast curious glances at him, guessing in their hearts which family the young master of Jianqin, who looked no more than 20 years old, was from. On the third floor of the auction house, an old man in a white robe frowned slightly as he pondered. Strange, why does the voice of the person who bid for the earth core fruit sound so familiar? The old man murmured in a low voice. Suddenly, 2 beams of light burst out from his originally ordinary eyes. He exclaimed in a low voice, "Jianqin? This is Jianqin's voice. How is this possible? Could it be that he is still alive?" When the old man guessed Jianqin's identity, he was suddenly shocked. He immediately stood up from his chair and hurried downstairs. Soon, he arrived at the first floor of the auction house. His sharp eyes scanned the somewhat dark space, and soon he found Jianqin's trace in a corner. The moment he saw Jianqin, the old man's body trembled slightly. His face revealed a look of ecstasy as he murmured, it's him, it's really him. I didn't expect him to be alive. The Treasure Mountain's seal must be on him." Under the sharp gaze of the old man, Jianqin also turned his head and looked over. When he saw the old man, he was slightly stunned. Soon after, a meaningful smile appeared on his face. He stood up and left his seat. With his head held high and his chest puffed out, he walked over to the old man with large strides. Jianqin swaggered in front of the old man and studied him with a smile. He smiled and said, "If I remember correctly, you should be the 3rd elder of the Shi family. I didn't think I'd meet you here. What a coincidence." The old man was the 3rd elder of the Shi family who possessed wind-attributed Saint Force. Back then, he had chased Jianqin to a dead end. Jianqin had an extremely deep impression of him. "You really are Jianqin." With Jianqin's words, the 3rd elder of the Shi family was completely certain of his guess. The young man before him really was Jianqin, who had taken their Shi family's Treasure Mountain seal back then. However, after learning of Jianqin's identity, the 3rd elder of the Shi family became excited. During this time, they had never stopped searching for the whereabouts of the ruler armament. They had even expended a lot of energy to use secret techniques to search for the ruler armament. But in the end, they still came up empty-handed. Instead, they had expended quite a lot of their energy. Yet now he had unexpectedly encountered the culprit who had stolen their ruler armament back then at the auction in Mercenary City. This allowed the third elder of the Sher family to see hope of finding the ruler armament again, which filled him with an indescribable excitement. Jianchen, you sure are lucky. You actually survived such heavy injuries back then. The third elder of the Sher family sneered. Jianchen chuckled. It's probably because the Yama king of the underworld refused to take me in, which is why I survived back then. Humph, we were too careless back then and did not take your corpse with us. Otherwise, how could you live such a happy life? Jianchen, I don't want to waste time with you. Now that the Jetta family is not here, you should hurry up and return our Sher family's treasure mountain seal. I will also keep the news that you are still alive a secret. The third elder of the Sher family said in a low voice. Jianchen looked at the third elder of the Sher family mockingly and said, Third elder, please go back. I still have to continue bidding, so I won't keep you company. With that, Jianchen turned and left, returning to his seat. The third elder of the Sher family coldly stared at Jianchen's departing figure as he clenched his fists tightly. If it weren't for the fact that they were in Mercenary City, he would have attacked Jianchen long ago. How could he have allowed him to leave so calmly? Jianchen, let's see where you can run to this time. The third elder of the Sher family sneered and turned to leave the auction house, no longer participating in the bidding. Little brother Jianchen, the way that old man looked at you was a bit strange. Could it be that you have some grudge with him? Jianchen had just sat down when Hu Xiaoyan's voice came from beside him. Jianchen did not try to hide it and said, Yes, it's a big enemy. Little brother Jianchen, you should be careful. That old man is a heaven saint master. His strength is on a completely different level from that of an earth saint master. Hu Xiaotian said with a serious face. Thank you for your concern. I will be careful. Jianchen replied with a smile. Since he had hidden his presence, Hu Xiaotian was unable to see through his strength. But there's no need to worry too much, little brother Jianchen. If you come across an enemy you can't handle, just hide in Mercenary City because no one will dare to start a fight in Mercenary City. This rule doesn't just apply to Heaven Saint Masters and everyone below them. Even Saint Rulers who are rarely seen won't dare to cause trouble in Mercenary City, Hu Xiaotian said. Jianchen's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. He said in surprise, Even Saint Rulers don't dare to cause trouble here. Is Mercenary City really that terrifying? It's even more terrifying than you can imagine. Hu Xiaotian's expression immediately became solemn. He pointed at the sky and said, Little brother, you must have seen the huge barrier that envelopes the entire Mercenary City. Let me tell you, this barrier has existed for countless years. It was personally set up by Mo Tianyin in the past, and it has always silently protected Mercenary City. If you fight or injure someone in Mercenary City, you will be punished by the power of the barrier. In severe cases, you will even die on the spot. It is extremely terrifying. So that's how it is. Jianchen came to a realization. The auction continued, and within an hour, more than a dozen precious items were sold. At this moment, the auctioneer raised a glass bottle high into the air. The glass bottle was very small, only the size of a fist. It shone with a hazy light, like the destruction of the starry sky. It was extremely enchanting. At a closer glance, it was not difficult to see that there were quite a few grains the size of sand floating in the bottle. They moved slowly, and every single one of them shone with a starry light. From afar, it seemed like a boundless starry sky. Every single grain was a star in the vast universe. The auctioneer raised the hazy item and loudly said, Everyone, I will introduce this treasure to everyone. I'm sure this is the first time many of you are seeing this item in my hand, because it comes from a place of despair on the Tianyuan continent, the Sea of Illusory Stars. What? The Sea of Illusory Stars? It's said that the Sea of Illusory Stars is the most dangerous place on the Tianyuan continent aside from the Death Nest. It's even more terrifying than the Cross Mountain Range. It's impossible for Heaven Saint Masters to survive there, and even Saint Rulers can die there. I never thought that this item would come from the sea of illusory stars. It must have been brought out by some hermit, Saint Ruler. I just don't know what use this item has. But since it comes from the sea of illusory stars, it must have something special about it. A single stone caused 1,000 ripples. As soon as they heard that it came from the sea of illusory stars, the people sitting in the auction hall immediately cried out in surprise. Everyone looked at the glass bottle in the auctioneer's hand with great interest. Jianqin stared at the glass bottle. He knew that this was the celestial powder that the sword spirits had mentioned. It was an extremely high-grade material. This is celestial powder, but it's a little too little. I'm afraid it won't even be enough. If you want to forge the azulite swords, you'll need at least several dozen kilograms. Ziying's disappointed voice rang out in Jianqin's head. However, what he said shocked Jianqin quite a bit. He cried out, "What? You need several dozen kilograms of celestial powder to forge the azulite swords?" "Yeah. In short, the more celestial powder you add, the better. You'll need to add as much as you can. However, although there's very little celestial powder for sale here, it's fortunate that the sea of illusory stars produces celestial powder. Master, you have to go there and collect as much celestial powder as you can," Ziying said. Jianqin bitterly smiled and sighed when he heard that. Although he did not know how powerful the sea of illusory stars was, he had already gotten a rough idea of how terrifying it was from what others had said. Chapter 604. The auctioneer's voice once again rang out from the stage. "The item in my hand that comes from the sea of illusory stars has a very unique name. It is called spiritual gathering powder. It is not only beautiful on the surface. Its effects will definitely shock everyone present because it has the ability to gather yuan qi from the world. If you wear it on your body, then your cultivation speed will greatly increase. Even when compared to absorbing the energy from monster cores to cultivate, it will not be inferior." Hearing this, the large auction hall burst into an uproar. Just this point alone made everyone understand the value of the spiritual gathering powder. However, the auctioneer's next sentence made many people go crazy. The effects of the spiritual gathering powder are not that simple. As long as it comes into contact with the outside world, then it will be able to continuously absorb the yuan qi of the world. If you place it in your clan, then the yuan qi of the world in your clan will be many times denser than usual. It can easily transform your clan into a sacred cultivation ground. Everyone, think about it. Once you have such excellent conditions, why worry about your clan not being strong? Hearing this, everyone's gazes burned with passion. Everyone's eyes burned with desire. To them, the effects of the spirit-gathering powder were countless times more precious than the 10,000-year-old heavenly treasure, the earth heart fruit. After all, this was a sacred item that could make a clan powerful and prosperous. Furthermore, it was produced in the sea of illusory stars and was extremely difficult to obtain. This prevented the possibility of the spirit-gathering powder appearing in large quantities on the Tianyuan continent. At this moment, everyone had already made up their minds to do their best to obtain the spiritual gathering powder because it was just too important to a clan. The auction for the spiritual gathering powder will now begin. The starting price is 3 million purple coins, and each increment must not be lower than 100,000. If there is anyone who is interested in the spiritual gathering powder, then do not miss it. This spiritual gathering powder is extremely difficult to obtain," the auctioneer said with a smile. Following this, a fierce battle ensued. The people from the various clans all hysterically bid for the spiritual gathering powder, causing the price of the spiritual gathering powder to skyrocket at an unbelievable speed. In just a short moment, it broke through the high price of 10 million purple coins. Jianqin calmly sat in the corner without saying a word. He listened to the constant bids in the surroundings. After learning that this little bit of powder was nowhere near enough to forge the azulite swords, he had already given up on the idea of bidding. This was because this little bit of powder would not be of any help to the forging of the twin swords. It looks like I'll have to pay a visit to the Sea of Illusory Stars once I'm strong enough. Only there can I obtain enough Heavenly Star powder for the Azulite swords, Genshin thought. The Heavenly Star powder was auctioned off for an hour, and in the end it was bought by a mysterious old man sitting on the second floor. The final price was over 80 million purple gold coins, enough to match the entire wealth of a kingdom. The auction lasted for an entire day before coming to an end. When Genshin left the auction hall, the sky outside had already become pitch black. Hu Shaotian arrived beside Genshin and raised his head to look at the pitch-black sky. He murmured, "Unknowingly, I've already spent an entire day in there. Brother Genshin, may I ask which inn you're staying in?" "I'm staying in an inn called Ku Xiangyuan on the Western Street." "Sir Hu Shaotian, it's getting late, so I need to go back and rest." "Farewell." Genshin clasped his hands at Hu Shaotian before turning around and leaving with large strides. "Hold on. I just happen to not have found an inn yet. Why don't I stay in Ku Xiangyuan with brother Genshin?" Hu Shaotian chuckled as he chased after Genshin and walked beside him. "Oh, right, brother Genshin. You should have been to the sacred land of Mercenary City, right? That's a place that even saint rulers yearn for. May I ask if Brother Genshin can tell me what's so special about the sacred land?" Hu Shaotian casually asked. "There is indeed something special about it, but the saint tier battle skills that truly attract saint rulers are the saint tier battle skills." Genshin did not hide anything from Hu Shaotian because he knew how powerful Mercenary City was. It would not matter even if he revealed the saint tier battle skills. He also believed that the saint rulers no longer knew about the saint tier battle skills. Just as I thought, I guessed that there might be saint tier battle skills that only exist in legends, but I never thought that there would really be such a thing. It's rumored that saint tier battle skills are the most powerful battle skills in the world, possessing the power to destroy the world. Only saint rulers can learn them, and they're extremely difficult to comprehend. Anyone who can completely comprehend a saint tier battle skill would be a supreme expert on the level of the Holy Emperor. Hu Shaotian sighed emotionally. Genshin stared at Hu Shaotian in surprise. He smiled. "I never thought that Sir Hu Shaotian would know so much. You even know so many secrets." With that, Hu Shaotian awkwardly smiled. "It's just general knowledge. As long as you stay on the Tianyuan continent for a long time, you'll slowly learn about these things." Genshin and Hu Shaotian walked together. They chatted all the way back to the inn. Genshin returned to his room and closed the door. He then opened the window and looked at the scenery outside. However, his gaze was fixed on a building across the street. A white-robed old man sat there as he stared at Genshin in interest. He was the third elder of the Sher family. Seeing how the third elder was behaving, Genshin could not help but smile. When he had just left the auction house, the third elder had been following him the entire time. However, he was much more cautious this time, brazenly choosing to follow him at a close distance. He was clearly afraid that Genshin would slip away from him again. "Third elder, don't you feel tired like this?" Genshin looked at the Sher family's third elder, who was sitting cross-legged on the roof with a playful expression. The third elder's eyes shone as he calmly said, "Genshin, I'd advise you to hand over the ruler armament. You won't be able to escape this time. Do you want to stay in Mercenary City for the rest of your life?" This time, Genshin did not say anything. He directly closed the window and sat on the bed in thought. He pondered what he should do next. Should he directly kill the third elder and return to Longevity Valley, or should he stay here and wait for the saint ruler of his clan to arrive and lead him to Longevity Valley for Uncle Shio to deal with? The only thing that troubled Genshin was that he did not know the exact strength of Uncle Shio and the saint ruler of the Sher family. He was not certain whether Uncle Shio could deal with the saint ruler of the Sher family. Genshin sat on the bed in thought for a while before finally coming up with a feasible plan. He then sat on the bed to rest. The next morning, Genshin bid farewell to Hu Shaotian and left on his Class 3 magical beast mount with the sleeping white tiger. He directly made his way out of the city. Soon, Jianqin left Mercenary City. He continued forward for another 10 kilometers before stopping. He then turned around and looked at the third elder of the Sher family, who had been following him the entire time. He smiled. "Third elder, we've already left the barrier of Mercenary City. Don't you want the ruler armament back? Why haven't you attacked me yet?" The third elder crossed his arms and stared coldly at Jianqin. "Jianqin, seeing how fearless you are, you must have asked for help. Call them all out. There's no point in continuing to hide. Why would I, Jianqin, need to ask for help to deal with you? Third elder, you don't need to worry too much. Today, only I, Jianqin, am here. If you want the ruler armament, then come and get it yourself." He had already expanded the senses of his soul as far as he could, enveloping a radius of 15 kilometers. As soon as he discovered the arrival of a saint ruler, he would rush to Mercenary City as quickly as possible. Arrogant, the third elder snorted coldly as he scanned the surroundings. "Everyone come out. This time, we must take back the 2 king weapons from him." The third elder of the Sher family had already set his sights on Duan Yunjian from the Jetta family. Following his words, 4 old men over the age of 70 suddenly appeared in the air around Jianqin. They formed a circle around Jianqin. Jianqin calmly looked at the old men who had suddenly appeared around him. He was not surprised or surprised at all because his consciousness had already discovered their existence. They had been following him from inside the city all this time. He did not know what method they had used to hide themselves, so it was impossible to see them with the naked eye. A faint, green sword had already appeared in the third elder's hand. He cautiously stared at Jianqin and said, "Jianqin, I'll give you one last chance. Are you going to hand over the ruler armaments or not?" At the same time, the 4 old men around Jianqin all summoned their saint weapons. Facing 5 heaven saint masters at once, Jianqin did not dare to be careless. He immediately used the origin energy of the sword spirits. 2 rays of light, one violet and one azure, shot out from his right hand and condensed into the shape of a sword. Seeing the origin energy of the sword spirits in Jianqin's hand, the third elder recalled the scene of Jianqin risking his life to fight back. His face immediately became stern as he yelled, "This Jianqin is not as simple as he seems on the surface. For elders, be careful. Don't worry, third elder. The 4 of us know about the tragedy of the 4 brothers of the Kai family. We obviously won't follow in their footsteps." An old man confidently smiled. Soon after, a dense layer of yellow light surged out from his body, condensing into an armor that covered his body. Chapter 605. Jianqin sneered as he charged at the old man without any fear. With a slight tremble of his right arm, he used his physical strength to drive the origin energy of the sword spirits to stab out without expending any energy. With a flash of violet and azure, it arrived at the old man's chest in an instant. The old man's expression changed. He had never thought that Jianqin would be so fast. Up until now, the experts of the Sher family had only known Jianqin as an Earth Saint Master. They had never thought that in just a year he would have broken through to become a Heaven Saint Master from the 2nd cycle of Earth Saint Master. The speed of Jianqin's stab was something that even wind-attributed Earth Saint Masters could not achieve. Such shocking speed surprised the experts of the Sher family. Their evaluation of Jianqin increased once again. Even though Jianqin's stab was surprisingly fast, the old man's reaction was extremely fast. The huge sword in his hand suddenly erupted with a bright yellow light as saint force surged from his body into the saint weapon, causing it to shine brightly. It illuminated the surroundings before slashing at Jianqin's origin energy with lightning speed. Boom! The origin energy of the sword spirits collided with the old man's huge sword. The powerful saint force within the huge sword immediately erupted, wreaking havoc in all directions like a pack of wild horses. Dirt was thrown into the air as dust filled the air, causing the entire battlefield to be shrouded in a cloud of dust. It was very difficult to see what was going on inside. The third elder of the Shur family and the other 3 elders who were watching the battle all had a faint layer of energy shield appear around their bodies, isolating them from the sand that was rolling towards them. However, their eyes were fixed on the cloud of dust in front of them, and their expressions were filled with unconcealable surprise. Third elder, is Genshin really only a 2nd cycle Earth Saint Master? An old man asked the third elder. The third elder said in a deep voice, "When I met him a year ago, he was indeed only an Earth Saint Master. But I never thought that in just a year his strength would undergo such a drastic change. Even with his saint weapon destroyed, he did not become a cripple. Instead, his battle prowess is even greater than before. It really is unexpected. Those who survive a great disaster are destined for good fortune." This saying really is true. An old man sighed. Right at this moment, a figure shot out from the cloud of dust, heading straight for the third elder of the Shur family. The third elder's eyes suddenly narrowed before he sneered, "You're actually unharmed. Elder Ma actually did not injure you at all. Genshin, your strength really has increased by a lot." As he spoke, the third elder's body was wrapped in a dense layer of wind-attributed saint force. He directly shot into the sky, reaching an altitude of 50 meters in the blink of an eye. At the same time, a dense layer of wind-attributed saint force suddenly appeared around Genshin's body. He followed closely behind the third elder. What? He's actually a Heaven Saint Master. The other 3 old men were all shocked when they saw this. Disbelief filled their faces. It had only been a little over a year. Yet the 2nd cycle Earth Saint Master had already become a Heaven Saint Master. His strength had skyrocketed, leaving the 3 of them tongue-tied. Seeing that Genshin could actually fly, the third elder was quite shocked as well. He stared at Genshin dumbfoundedly and uncontrollably cried out, "How is this possible? You were clearly an Earth Saint Master a year ago. How did the destruction of your saint weapon not only not make you lose the ability to fight, but also allow you to break through to the realm of Heaven's Saint Master?" The third elder could no longer maintain his previous composure. His face was filled with shock as his heart surged like a tidal wave. He was unable to calm down at all. Seeing the third elder's shocked expression, Genshin could not help but sneer. He coldly said, "Third elder, it's time to collect the debt from a year ago. Don't even think about leaving here today." As he spoke, Genshin had already approached the third elder. The origin energy of the sword spirits turned into an azure and violet streak of light that stabbed toward the third elder's throat. The third elder knew how powerful the origin energy of the sword spirits was, so he did not dare to take it head-on. Relying on the speed of his wind-attributed saint force, he rapidly retreated. At the same time, powerful saint force gathered on the sword in his hand as he roared out, "Earth tier battle skill, cloud-piercing mist!" The wind-attributed saint force around the third elder became even denser. Instead of retreating, he advanced. Like an arrow, he charged toward Genshin with unparalleled speed, as if he wanted to pierce through Genshin's body. Seeing that the third elder had actually taken the initiative to charge at him, Genshin sneered. Just as he was about to stab the origin energy of the sword spirits at the third elder, his expression suddenly changed. He immediately turned around, and the origin energy of the sword spirits stabbed into the empty space behind him with lightning-like speed. Ding! A crisp sound rang out in the empty space. A figure gradually appeared in the empty space. It was the third elder of the Shur clan. The third elder who had charged toward Genshin had disappeared into thin air as soon as he approached Genshin. It was actually an illusion. What a strange battle skill. Genshin sighed with some admiration. The Earth tier battle skill that the third elder of the Shur family had just used was actually a smokescreen. The first silhouette was just a shadow condensed from energy, while the third elder used a very mysterious method to hide himself. Furthermore, he used his speed to silently appear behind Genshin, attempting to deal a fatal blow. It was impossible to guard against. If Jianqin didn't have the help of his soul to detect the third elder who was hiding in the void, he would probably have been heavily injured by now. The third elder spat out a mouthful of blood. His face had already become somewhat pale. He stared at the saint weapon in his hand in disbelief, only to see that a crack had silently appeared on it. Elder Hunyuan is dead. Third elder. Jianqin killed Elder Hunyuan. At this moment, a cry rang out from below. The dust had already dispersed, and the Heaven Saint Master who had fought with Jianqin was already lying in a pool of blood. There was a shocking wound between his eyebrows. What? Elder Hunyuan is dead. The third elder paled in fright. He immediately turned his head to look below. When he saw the scene below, he was completely stunned. However, just as he was stunned, Jianqin had already charged over. The origin energy of the sword spirits stabbed toward the third elder's forehead. In the blink of an eye, it was less than a foot away from the third elder's forehead. The third elder was shocked. He hurriedly moved his head to the side, barely dodging Jianqin's fatal attack. Even so, there was still a tiny wound between his eyebrows. Swish! Jianqin struck out extremely quickly. As soon as the first strike was unleashed, the second strike would follow. He did not give the third elder any time to catch his breath. The third elder was extremely fearful of the origin energy of the sword spirits. He did not dare to clash with Jianqin directly. He only used his speed to rapidly retreat in an attempt to pull away from Jianqin. However, how could Jianqin let him do as he wished? He was also surrounded by wind-attributed saint force as he chased after the third elder with a speed that was no slower than his own. The third elder was unable to fight back at all. Go help the third elder. The three Heaven Saint Masters below discovered that the third elder was in danger, and all rushed into the sky. Don't worry about me. Hurry up and use a Heaven Tier battle skill. Only a Heaven Tier battle skill can heavily injure him. This bastard, it's only been a year since we last met. I never thought that he would become so powerful, the third elder yelled out. The third elder shouted loudly. He felt extremely unbalanced in his heart. He had spent a total of over 300 years to reach his current height. At this moment, even a junior who was not even 50 years old had been forced into such a sorry state. This was very difficult for him to accept. With that, the three Heaven Saint Masters did not hesitate at all. They immediately split up in a triangle and began to use a Heaven Tier battle skill. The three Heaven Saint Masters used a Heaven Tier battle skill at the same time. Without a doubt, the pressure from the Heaven Tier battle skill was extremely great. Violent winds suddenly kicked up in the surroundings, blowing the sand and pebbles into the air. Even the clouds in the sky began to violently surge, as if a furious dragon was stirring. A powerful pressure filled the surroundings, radiating far away. Many people in Mercenary City could sense it even from 10 kilometers away. A Heaven Tier battle skill. This is a pressure that only a Heaven Tier battle skill can possess. There are Heaven Saint Masters fighting outside the city. There are people fighting outside the city, and looking at the pressure from a Heaven Tier battle skill, it requires at least 2 or 3 people to use it at the same time. This is a very rare and interesting battle. Let's go take a look. Mercenary City immediately fell into an uproar. Many people stopped what they were doing and hurried out of the city. They all wanted to see this rare and interesting battle. Hu Xiaotian sat alone in an inn, drinking fine wine and eating roasted meat. When he sensed the pressure from a Heaven Tier battle skill, he could not help but frown slightly. He said, "A Heaven Saint Master has been following little brother Jianqin since yesterday, and little brother Jianqin has only just left today. Has little brother Jianqin fought with them?" Little brother Jianqin was only an Earth Saint Master when he participated in the mercenary tournament, and it hasn't even been 4 years since the tournament ended. Could it be that little brother Jianqin has already become a Heaven Saint Master in these 4 years? No, That doesn't seem possible, but the pressure from the Heaven Tier battle skill has already been completely unleashed. That's something only a Heaven Saint Master can do. Could it be that the person fighting is someone else? Looks like I should go take a look. Hu Xiaotian tossed a few shiny gold coins onto the table before immediately leaving. A clear girl's voice suddenly rang out in the sky above Mercenary City. Big brother, that's Big brother. Big brother is fighting with someone else. He seems to be in danger. Will Big brother be okay? Xiaoling, do you want to help Big brother? B. But Master forbids Xiaoling from interfering with these matters. If Xiaoling interferes with the matters outside the city, won't Master blame Xiaoling when he returns? B. But Big brother has Master's scent on him. Does Xiaoling want to just watch Big brother get hurt? Chapter 606. No one could hear the voice that rang out in the air above Mercenary City. Many people mounted their magical beasts and hurried out of the city. They all wanted to see just who was actually fighting outside Mercenary City and even using a Heaven Tier battle skill. Wind and clouds surged in the surroundings as the pressure from the Heaven Tier battle skills permeated the surroundings, causing the surrounding air to seem to freeze. Jianqin, who was chasing the third elder of the Shi family, became rather sluggish because he was locked onto by 3 Heaven Tier battle skills at the same time. This allowed the third elder of the Shi family to successfully escape. The third elder of the Shi family let out a long sigh of relief. He had just been chased by Jianqin, but he also had to carefully avoid the origin energy of the sword spirits. He was unable to use his limbs at all, so he was unable to use his full strength. He felt extremely sullen. Jianqin, I'd like to see how you're going to be so arrogant now. Heaven Tier battle skill, Heaven Cleaving Sword. The third elder of the Shi family bellowed out and immediately used the Heaven Tier battle skill. He swore to heavily injure Jianqin and vent the sullenness he had accumulated earlier. Jianqin felt like he was carrying a mountain on his back after being locked onto by 4 Heaven Tier battle skills at the same time. It was so heavy that even moving became extremely difficult. He was unable to dodge the Heaven Tier battle skills at all. Arg! Suddenly, Jianqin bellowed out at the sky. His voice rolled out and reverberated through the surroundings, spreading far and wide. At the same time, Jianqin's eyes suddenly lit up with an intense violet and azure light. They were like 2 demonic willow, the wisps that leaped about, filled with an evil aura. Wild winds kicked up in the surroundings, causing sand and rocks to fly everywhere. Countless rocks and weeds on the ground floated into the air, gathering toward Jianqin at an extremely fast speed. In a small forest 5 kilometers away, all the trees were uprooted by a mysterious force and shot into the sky. They radiated with a faint violet light as they flew toward Jianqin. In the blink of an eye, Jianqin was surrounded by a dense cloud of rocks, weeds, and trees. Afterwards, under the control of Jianqin's mind, they condensed into 4 huge, 20-meter-long swords in an extremely short amount of time. Each sword shone with a hazy violet light. Just as Jianqin finished this action, the 3 experts of the Shi family simultaneously used their Heaven Tier battle skills. Their saint weapons shone with a dazzling light as they slashed at Jianqin. The intense energy actually caused the surrounding space to distort. With a thought from Jianqin, 3 of the huge swords floating around him shot out like lightning, colliding with the 3 Heaven Tier battle skills to weaken their power. Boom! The 3 huge swords collided with the 3 Heaven Tier battle skills in the air, erupting with a deafening boom. Violent ripples of energy wreaked havoc in all directions, dispersing the clouds in the sky. When the ripples of energy reached the ground below, the tough earth within a radius of 1.5 kilometers had been forcefully pressed down by a meteor. Jianqin's 3 huge swords were as weak as tofu. As soon as they came in contact with the Heaven Tier battle skills, they were dispersed by the 3 Heaven Tier battle skills. However, the Heaven Tier battle skills did not disperse because of this. They continued to charge toward Jianqin without weakening at all. but their power was clearly much weaker than before. Surging earth elemental energy gathered around Genshin's body, condensing into a sturdy armor in the blink of an eye. At the same time, the origin energy of the azure and violet sword spirits in his right hand shone brightly. The sword light that was originally 2 fingers wide and 1 meter long suddenly expanded to the width of a palm and 10 meters long. The intense violet and azure light dyed the surrounding space a different color. At this moment, Genshin had already pushed the origin energy of the azure and violet sword spirits to the limit. Afterwards, he shot out 3 huge sword chis at lightning speed, colliding with the ripples of energy from the 3 heaven-tier battle skills. When the 2 collided, another heavy sound rang out. The azure and violet sword chis were dispersed, and the 3 heaven-tier battle skills were weakened once again. Having reached this point, Genshin no longer had the time to continue attacking. In the end, the weakened heaven-tier battle skills struck his body. Boom! With a muffled sound, Genshin's body was sent flying far away. The heaven-tier battle skills were just too powerful. Even though their power had been greatly weakened, the residual power was still not to be underestimated. The earth elemental armor that had just formed on his body immediately shattered. A mouthful of dark red blood spurted out from Genshin's mouth. His face had already become pale. If he was facing a single heaven-tier battle skill, Genshin could resist it with light injuries, or even be completely unharmed. However, when facing 3 heaven-tier battle skills at the same time, he could no longer do the same. Genshin's body was sent flying far away by the heaven-tier battle skills. However, before he could stabilize his body was once again locked down by a powerful pressure. The Shi family's 3rd elder raised his hands high, and between his hands, a huge sword that was over 100 meters long rapidly formed. It emitted a dazzling azure light that illuminated the world. Sky-severing sword, the Shi family's 3rd elder roared. He suddenly swung his hands down, and the huge sword that was over 100 meters long slashed down at Genshin's head like lightning. Wherever the huge sword passed, the space there would tremble slightly, as if it was about to be torn apart. Genshin's expression became extremely solemn. He did not have time to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. The dense origin energy of the sword spirits once again shot out from his right hand, condensing into a huge sword that was over 10 meters long. At the same time, the huge sword of grass and wood shot out with a layer of azure and violet sword chi, directly colliding with the heaven-tier battle skill. Boom! The violent explosion reverberated through the world like a deafening clap of thunder. It was so loud that it was deafening. The ground below constantly trembled, and spider-web-like cracks spread out for several kilometers. Genshin's huge sword of grass and wood was easily pulverized, not even leaving behind a single piece of wood. It was directly turned into nothingness by the sharp sword chi of Sky-severing sword. However, Sky-severing sword did not slow down at all, continuing to shoot towards Genshin. Genshin's face was rather gloomy. The 3rd elder had used a heaven-tier battle skill, but it was actually much more powerful than the heaven-tier battle skills used by the 3 Heaven Saint Masters. This caused his heart to become very heavy. However, his movements were restricted by the powerful pressure of the heaven-tier battle skill, making it impossible for him to dodge. The only thing he could do was to take it head-on. A trace of madness flashed through Genshin's eyes. He used all his strength to continuously shoot out the origin energy of the sword spirits at Sky-severing sword to weaken its power. At the same time, he condensed another layer of earth elemental armor on his body. Although this armor was still unable to block the heaven-tier battle skill, it could at least block a portion of the power for Genshin. Sky-severing sword was also extremely fast. Just as Genshin had sent out 3 powerful sword chi, Sky-severing sword had already viciously struck his body, instantly shattering the earth elemental armor he had just condensed. At the same time, Genshin was heavily injured as well, being blown away like a cannonball. He spat out a mouthful of blood, which turned into a bloody mist that filled the air. His chest was already a bloody mess. After blocking 4 Heaven Tier battle skills used by Heaven Saint Masters, he was already heavily injured. Jianqin flew back over 300 meters before finally stabilizing himself. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper without a trace of blood. However, he was still able to maintain his strength as he steadily hovered in the air, not falling from the sky. Jianqin, you should just surrender and hand over what belongs to us. Otherwise, you'll definitely die a horrible death this time, the third elder panted heavily. The Heaven Tier battle skill consumed too much of his saint force. The Heaven Tier battle skill he had just used had consumed more than half of his saint force. The other 3 elders also gathered in front of the third elder as they panted. They all stared at Jianqin with complicated expressions, as if they were looking at a monster. They had never thought that Jianqin would still be able to hover in the air after taking on 4 Heaven Tier battle skills. This result had greatly exceeded their expectations. This kid really isn't simple. I originally thought that after taking on 4 of our Heaven Tier battle skills, even if he didn't die, he would lose his ability to fight. I never thought that he wouldn't seem to be heavily injured at all. Unbelievable, one of the elders said in a deep voice, his voice filled with shock, as expected of the person who obtained first place in the mercenary tournament. He really does have some ability, another elder standing beside the third elder sighed. The third elder stared deeply at Jianqin and said in a deep voice, "The power in his hands is very powerful. The Heaven Tier battle skills we used were greatly weakened by this power. He probably only withstood less than half of their power. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't have suffered so little after taking on 4 Heaven Tier battle skills. I wonder what kind of strange power he controls is," another elder murmured, his eyes filled with envy and jealousy. "That's simple. Once we capture him, we'll naturally know what kind of power it is," the third elder sneered. He then stared sharply at Jianqin and yelled, "Jianqin, do you still want to fight to the death?" Jianqin hovered in the air without saying anything. He lowered his head slightly and glanced at his mangled chest. He understood extremely well that if it were not for the fact that his body had been tempered by chaotic force and become much tougher, the third elder's Heaven Tier battle skill probably would have pierced through his chest. It would have been impossible for him to have suffered so little injuries. If it were another Heaven Saint Master, they probably would have lost the ability to fight after suffering such heavy injuries. However, Jianqin could clearly feel that he still possessed quite a lot of battle prowess. His tough body seemed to have bestowed him with endless power. Even with such heavy injuries, he still felt like he possessed inexhaustible strength. Jianqin slowly raised his head and coldly stared at the 4 people in front of him. A powerful battle intent gradually radiated from his body, and the dim origin energy in his right hand returned to its original color. The dense violet light seemed to have solidified. A year ago, Jianqin was unable to resist the Heaven Tier battle skills used by the third elder and the others, but now he could directly take on the Heaven Tier battle skills used by 4 Heaven Saint Masters at the same time. The 3 elders all became stern when they sensed the battle intent radiating from Jianqin. Their gazes toward Jianqin went from surprise to shock. Chapter 607. At this moment, a large group of people from Mercenary City had gathered in the distance. They all watched the battle from afar, and there was no lack of Heaven Saint Masters among them. There were even over 10 Heaven Saint Masters who had risen into the air, watching the battle from a few kilometers away. Hu Shaotian stood in the crowd, his eyes shining brightly as he looked into the distance. Even though he was a few kilometers away, he could still see the faces of the people in front of him clearly with his eyesight. When Hu Shaotian discovered Jianqin floating in the air, his face was filled with surprise. That really is little brother Jianqin. I never thought that he would actually break through to Heaven Saint Master. I really misjudged him. But isn't he a little too powerful? He's fighting 4 Heaven Saint Masters by himself, and he's even blocking their combined Heaven tier battle skill. Has little brother Jianqin already reached the 6th cycle of Heaven Saint Master? Look, isn't the person fighting the 4 Heaven Saint Masters the winner of this year's mercenary tournament Jianqin? Someone nearby recognized Jianqin and immediately cried out, It really does look like Jianqin. But wasn't Jianqin only an Earth Saint Master when he participated in the tournament? How has he become a Heaven Saint Master in just over a year? That really is Jianqin. Heavens, he's already a Heaven Saint Master, and he's even fighting 4 Heaven Saint Masters, forcing them to use their battle skills. This is unbelievable. Since Jianqin can participate in the tournament, he's definitely not older than 50. What 50? Do you think Jianqin is that old? According to what I know, Jianqin's true age doesn't seem to be over 30. What? He's not even 30? Heavens, he's already a Heaven Saint Master at such an age. That's unbelievable. The Heaven tier battle skills earlier should have been used by the 4 Heaven Saint Masters fighting Jianqin. Jianqin actually managed to block them all by himself. This is unbelievable. I estimate that he's at least a 4th cycle Heaven Saint Master. Not just a 4th cycle Heaven Saint Master. Even a 6th cycle Heaven Saint Master would find it difficult to block the Heaven tier battle skills used by 4 experts of the same level. I think Jianqin's strength is close to Saint Ruler. The person who spoke was an old man. His expression was mixed and his voice was heavy. Even he found it hard to believe that Jianqin could block 4 Heaven tier battle skills by himself. What? Saint Ruler? How is this possible? Everyone saw through Jianqin's identity very quickly. His sudden transformation into a Heaven Saint Master had stunned everyone. Everyone looked at Jianqin in extreme shock as they all cried out in surprise. In particular, when someone said that Jianqin's strength was close to Saint Ruler, the entire place immediately fell silent. They were all speechless from shock. This piece of news was just too shocking to them. Jianqin has actually reached Heaven Saint Master before the age of 30. His talent is just too terrifying. Even with the entire continent in perspective, he can be regarded as a once-in-a-millennium genius. An old man sighed in surprise after quite a while. Jianqin has even entered the sacred land of Mercenary City. Coupled with his innate talent, he'll probably become a true Saint Ruler before long, a ruddy old man sighed. On the other side, 3 middle-aged men in black robes gathered together. The man in the middle was composed as he held a fan. He gently murmured, reaching Heaven Saint Master before the age of 30 and withstanding the Heaven tier battle skills of 4 people of the same level. Jianqin is not simple. His future accomplishments are limitless. If we can rope him in, he'll be of great assistance to our clan once he breaks through to Saint Ruler. Elder Zhou, go find out more about Jianqin later. See where he comes from and where he lives. The person behind the middle-aged man hesitated slightly before replying. It may be a little difficult, but I'll do my best. Jianqin's strength had been completely exposed. His supreme talent had attracted the attention of many people from large clans. Without any exception, all of them made up their minds to rope him in. Even if they could not rope him in, they could not become his enemy. This was because they all knew that offending Jianqin was equivalent to offending a Saint Ruler, and it was extremely likely that he would become a holy emperor in the future. Jianqin was heavily injured in the sky, but he still stood tall. He hovered in the air like an unsheathed sword, radiating with battle intent. The elders of the Sher family had also guessed the consequences of offending Jianqin. However, they had already formed an irreconcilable blood feud with Jianqin, so it was too late for them to back out. The only thing they could do was eliminate Jianqin before he grew to the point where he could threaten their Sher family. Otherwise, he would become a disaster for the Sher family sooner or later. Everyone, let's go together. We must capture Jianqin today. Even if we can't capture him, we have to make him die here. We can't let him escape again. The 3rd elder did not give Jianqin any time to catch his breath. He charged toward Jianchen with the 3 experts beside him. Jianchen showed no fear at all. He advanced instead of retreating. He took the initiative to receive them with the origin energy of the sword spirits. "Little brother Jianchen, let me help you." At this moment, a deep voice came from afar. Hu Shaotian flew over from afar. "Jianchen will help you too." As soon as Hu Shaotian moved, the 3 middle-aged men in black robes also flew towards Jianchen, unwilling to fall behind. Since they wanted to rope in Jianchen, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. "Us too." A few more voices rang out from the crowd. Another 4 Heaven Saint Masters soared into the sky, radiating with battle intent as they flew toward the 4 experts of the Sure family. They all wanted to use this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get on good terms with Jianchen. After all, helping someone in their hour of need was the most unforgettable thing. In the blink of an eye, 8 Heaven Saint Masters took action. They were willing to help Jianchen deal with the 4 experts of the Sure family. The sudden change caused the faces of the 4 experts of the Sure family to become extremely gloomy. They never would have thought that something like this would happen along the way. "Jianchen, thanks everyone for your help. But Jianchen can still deal with the 4 people in front of us. Everyone should just watch from the side. Today, I will personally kill the 4 of them." Jianchen shouted at them. Of the 4 experts of the Sure family, only the Heaven Tier battle skills could make him fear them. Once they were unable to use the Heaven Tier battle skills, Jianchen really did not care about the 4 experts of the Sure family. This was because the origin energy of the sword spirits was what he relied on the most. Furthermore, he did not want to casually owe people favors because he understood that these favors were not easy to return. As a result, he directly rejected everyone's good intentions. As he spoke, Jianchen had already begun fighting with the 4 experts of the Sure family. They fought intensely in the air several hundred meters above the ground. When the people who had come to help Jianchen heard what he said, they all stopped and hovered in the air. This was because they also wanted to see Jianchen's true strength. They wanted to see if he could still kill 4 Heaven Saint Masters with his heavily injured body after blocking their Heaven Tier battle skills. Since little brother Jianchen wants to personally kill the 4 of them, I won't get in the way of little brother Jianchen. Hu Shaotian smiled faintly as he hovered in the air. "If little brother Jianchen needs our help, just ask. The 3 of us will do our best to help." A middle-aged man in black robes gently waved his fan and smiled. He did not care about the identities of the 4 experts of the Sure family at all. Chapter 608. Jianchen did not reply, and instead fought with all his might against the 4 Sure clan experts. Jianchen controlled the origin energy of the azure and violet sword spirits to continuously attack the 4 Sure clan experts. The incomparable speed of his attacks caused a dense array of sword images to appear around him. Each attack was sharp and precise, displaying the essence of the way of the sword to perfection. Although the 4 Sure clan experts had the advantage in terms of numbers, they were still wary of the origin energy of the azure and violet sword spirits, so they were unable to use their full strength. In the end, the 4 of them who should have had the upper hand were actually suppressed by Jianchen, causing them to feel extremely sullen. Furthermore, Jianchen had the help of his soul, allowing him to observe his surroundings. Even if the 4 of them spread out and surrounded Jianchen and attacked him from different directions, they would not be able to do anything. This was because Jianchen would always be able to dodge at the most crucial moment or directly use the origin energy of the azure and violet sword spirits to stab their saint weapons, forcing them to forcefully withdraw their attacks. This bastard, he's clearly heavily injured. How can he still have such a strong battle strength? After a few dozen exchanges, one of the elders could no longer bear it and cursed as he dodged. "We can't continue like this. The 4 of us should join forces and use the Heaven Tier battle skill again. Let's end this quickly," another old man said in a deep voice. He didn't want to continue fighting like this. Hearing this, the third elder decisively rejected. No, the Heaven Tier battle skill consumes too much energy. We've already used up 50 to 60% of our Saint Force each time we use it. If we use it a second time, we'll use up all the Saint Force in our bodies. When that time comes, we won't have any battle strength left. It'll be very disadvantageous for us. The third elder was filled with regret. If he had known earlier that Jianshin had become so powerful, he would have notified the clan to send more people. At the same time, he would have also informed the Jetta clan. If the two clans had sent experts to deal with Jianshin, they would not have ended up like this, and would have caused the clan to lose an expert. Ah! Suddenly, a chilling cry rang out. An old man had been stabbed in the chest by the Azulite sword spirits because he had been distracted while speaking. Elder Mark. The third elder and the other two elders cried out in alarm. Then, the three of them simultaneously used their Earth-ranked battle skills to attack Jianshin in an attempt to save Elder Mark. However, Jianshin was much faster than they had imagined. Before they could even use their Earth-tier battle skills, the origin energy of the sword spirits had already pierced through Elder Mark's forehead like a bolt of lightning, piercing through his soul and wiping him out on the spot. Elder Mark! The three of them cried out in alarm, their expressions sorrowful. The fact that Elder Mark had died right in front of them was a huge blow to their hearts. After killing Elder Mark, Jianshin's movements didn't stop at all. He waved his right hand like lightning, and 3-meter-long pure sword chi shot out like lightning towards the three people who were still in a daze. Elder Mark's death had a huge impact on the three of them. While they were distracted, only the third elder was able to dodge the sword chis with his speed. The other two elders were struck by the sword chis and had their chests pierced, causing them to cry out in pain. Jianshin knew that this was the perfect opportunity to kill the two elders and immediately rushed forward. The origin energy of the Azulite sword spirits slashed at the two elders' necks with lightning speed, decapitating them. Pooh! 2 pillars of blood shot into the sky as the two elders' decapitated heads flew high into the air. However, the two elders did not immediately die. From their eyes, one could clearly see the undisguised fear. With a gentle flick of his finger, 2 strands of azure and violet sword chi shot out from the tip of his finger. They pierced a finger-sized hole between the eyebrows of the two heads and dispersed their souls on the spot. In the blink of an eye, 3 of the 4 Heaven Saint Masters had been killed, leaving only the third elder alive. Seeing this scene, the third elder could not help but turn pale with fright. He immediately lost the will to continue fighting and turned to flee. The 4 Heaven Saint Masters were not Lin Fan's opponent even when working together. Now that he was the only one left, he felt that if he continued to stay, he would definitely die. The current Jianshin was no longer the same person he had been a year ago when he had chased him to the ends of the earth. Don't even think about escaping. Jianshin sneered. Dense wind elemental energy enveloped his body as he immediately pursued the third elder. His speed was actually slightly faster than the third elder's. As he chased, Jianshin also shot a powerful sword chi at the third elder. Swish! The sword chi tore through the air and emitted a series of subtle whistling sounds. It shot towards the third elder's back at lightning speed and pierced through his chest. The third elder spat out a mouthful of blood as his face became deathly pale. His body that was floating in the air swayed, almost falling out of the sky. His speed of escape also slowed down because of this. Seeing that there was no hope for him to escape, the third elder just gave up on running. A sliver of determination appeared on his face as he coldly stared at Jianshin. He yelled out, "Jianshin, even if I die, I won't let you have an easy time. The people of our Sure family will avenge me. You definitely won't be able to live for much longer. Death's imprint." The third elder roared, and a layer of faint red smoke rose from his body. His body, quickly dried up, as if he had lost all the water in his body. Very quickly, he turned into a bag of bones. The red mist gathered around the third elder, condensing into a strange blood-red pattern in the blink of an eye. It then shot toward Gentian with unbelievable speed. Faced with this strange blood-red pattern, Gentian actually had no time to dodge. This was because the blood-red pattern was simply too fast. It was like a real bolt of lightning as it directly drilled into Gentian's body and disappeared. After shooting out the blood-red pattern, the third elder slowly closed his eyes and fell from the sky. His withered body was like an ancient corpse that had been air-dried for a long time. Gentian turned pale with fright. He didn't have time to check on the third elder's condition and hurriedly checked his own body. Indeed, he found the strange blood-red pattern that the third elder had just shot out in his body. This pattern was like an imprint, deeply imprinted on his body. Gentian's face became serious as he thought about the third elder's last words. He murmured in a low voice, "Death's imprint, what the hell is this thing?" The death's imprint is formed by a person's spirit. Its purpose is to leave an indelible imprint on the enemy's body, making it easier to find in the future. As soon as Gentian finished speaking, a voice came from not far away. Hu Shaotian flew over from the distance, and the person who spoke was him. Hu Shaotian looked at Gentian with a complicated expression. His heart was not as calm as he looked on the surface. Gentian had killed 4 masters of the same level by himself. That kind of strength made him feel very shocked. Hu Shaotian arrived before Gentian and let out a long sigh to calm his surging emotions. After a moment of thought, he continued, "The cost of using the death's imprint is extremely great. Normally, people will only use this secret technique when they have no hope of escaping and know that they will die for sure. This is because once the death's imprint is used, the caster's spirit will completely drain away, resulting in their spirit being wiped out. Moreover, all the blood in their body will evaporate in an instant, causing their body to wither rapidly, just like that person from before. And once a person has been imprinted with the death's imprint, no matter where they run, they will be found by the person behind the caster and be hunted down endlessly." Hu Shaotian stared at Gentian deeply and said, "Brother Gentian, you need to be careful. The person behind this old man can find you at any time through the death's imprint he has left on you. No matter how far away you are, you can't avoid it. If you really can't handle it, just hide in Mercenary City.